Evolution begins with a big tree, chapter 349, the growth of young beasts. Yuziyu heaved a sigh, feeling a bit helpless. At this moment, as if sensing Yuziyu's emotions, soft whimpers sounded in his ears. Looking up, 3 young creatures entered his sight. One was a wolf cub as big as a calf but with 2 heads. One was a golden monkey with multiple big ears that fluttered in the wind. And the last one was a snake with multiple heads which looked a bit ferocious. However, looking at these 3 oddly shaped and somewhat menacing little creatures, Yuziyu could not help but smile. I must say, you 3 have grown real quick. Saying this, Yuziyu noticed that Slytherin and Lupin both were Tier 1 transcendents. Their cultivation speed was impressive. However, considering that they were born with superior talents and were vigorously cultivated by Yuziyu, it was not surprising that they could advance so quickly. Of course, with just tens of thousands of spiritual energy, they were far behind White Tiger, who had already reached the peak of Tier 1. At this point, it was worth mentioning that after the last incident, these 3 were brought to Yuziyu for safety. Coincidentally, Lupin and Slytherin also had a certain demand for Ice Attribute Spirit Stone Mine. Ruhar, with a series of low roars, both heads of Lupin rose consecutively, rubbing affectionately against Yuziyu's trunk. Smiling, Yuziyu glanced deeply at the wolf cub, which was as big as a little calf. Race: Mutant Azure Wolf. Rank: Tier 1 Transcendent. Innate talent: Dual elements, it possesses both ice and fire elemental talent, which allows it to breathe both ice and fire. Unique abilities: Savage Bite: as an azure wolf with 2 heads, its biting speed is several times faster than ordinary azure wolves, as fast as lightning. Multiple Consciousness: each head can independently think and judge and cooperate with each other. Extreme Ice: surging with formidable ice attribute spiritual energy, it can unleash the coldest ice breath. Scorching Fire: gathering its fire-like seething spiritual energy, it can burn everything around. He can proficiently manipulate ice and fire elements? Muttering to himself, Yuziyu also realized the terrifying potential Lupin had. With 2 heads, one focused on fire and the other on ice, the dual elements talent of ice and fire made him an extraordinary ice-fire wolf. It was not as simple as having an extra head. Even more terrifyingly, while having an extra head, he also gained an additional consciousness, almost undergoing a qualitative change in his mastery of the elements. Now Yuziyu raised a branch and pointed at a distant ice peak. "Show me your strength." Hearing Yuziyu's voice, Lupin suddenly lifted his heads and howled, seemingly excited. In his howls there was a touch of innocence. After a moment, Lupin leaped lightly, jumping to an ice peak dozens of meters away. Then, one of his heads slowly rose as a cluster of deep red flames flickered in his eyes. Immediately after, that head let out a long howl before it was ablaze with raging flames. However, before anyone could react, Lupin's other head, unwilling to be outdone, also craned his neck and howled. ****. While an even more terrifying howl reverberated across the sky, a layer of ice started condensing beneath Lupin's feet, freezing the ground on the side of Ice Attribute Head. Looking from afar, half of the ground under Lupin's feet was ablaze with fire, melting the ice peak, while the other half was frozen, a cold mist rising from the ground. Right at this moment. Oh! Both of Lupin's heads howled and 2 beams of energy shot out from each mouth. However, one was scorching hot like fire and the other was cold as ice. These 2 beams of energy constantly brushed against each other, and by the time they reached the end, the blue and red beams of energy had merged into a thicker beam of energy, reaching a length of 100 meters. At this precise moment, boom, accompanied by a deafening noise, a mountain dozens of meters away quietly disappeared, as if evaporating from the world. Yuziyu could not help but nod, with a touch of amazement visible in the depths of his eyes. Unlike ordinary mutant beasts, Lupin could easily integrate ice and fire elements, thereby exponentially increasing their power. In other words, with the same amount of spiritual energy, Lupin's elemental attacks were several times, even tens of times, stronger than others. What did this mean? Just thinking about it, Yuziyu's gaze became heated as he looked towards Lupin. This little guy is really something. Although his rapid advancement to Tier 1 could be accredited to the Fire Attribute and Ice Attribute Spirit Stone Mines, his innate talent could not be underestimated either. And now, apart from his amazing cultivation talent, he had another talent: spectacular combat power. His combat power was simply amazing. Unlike other mutant beasts, Yuziyu saw something called hope in Lupin. If he can advance to Tier 2, his combat power, supplemented by his ice and fire element, would definitely be nothing short of terrifying. At that time, this little guy might become my powerful aide, bearing the title of Ice-Fire Devil Wolf. Thinking of this, Yuziyu gave a subtle approving look to Lupin. This little guy has lived up to my expectations. Just at this moment. Hiss, hiss. Several hisses suddenly drew Yuziyu's attention. Looking up, he saw the three-headed green snake excitedly hissing. You do not want to be left out either, huh? Smiling, Yuziyu's eyes narrowed slightly as a series of information appeared before him. Race, mutant green snake. Rank, Tier 1 Transcendent. Innate talent, immortality. As a snake with 3 heads, it's immortal. It possesses a terrifying regenerative ability. Even if it lost its 1 head, it can regrow it in an instant with sufficient spiritual energy. After advancing to Tier 1, its 3 heads gain the ability of steal. It can steal its prey's abilities by devouring their flesh and blood. Each time it steals an ability, it undergoes metamorphosis, growing another head. Unique abilities, lethal poison. The poison it emits is highly toxic. Even beings several ranks higher can get poisoned if they are careless, potentially reducing them to a puddle of toxic water. Scale armor. Its bluish-black, fish-like scales constitute its most formidable defense, capable of nullifying the majority of attacks. Aquatic warfare. As a species that excels at aquatic warfare, it should have lived in the ocean or large rivers. In the water, its combat power can greatly increase. Growth. With abundant food, it can grow rapidly, continuously increasing in size. After going through Slytherin's status screen, Yuziyu increasingly felt the need to release Slytherin into the ocean. Although this little guy could also live on land, judging by its talent and abilities, it was born for the sea. More importantly, Yuziyu indeed needed more deep-sea combatants. Although he now had a mutant orca, one creature was far from enough. And one thing was certain, with Slytherin's talent, if it was set free into the ocean, it would undoubtedly be like a dragon returning to the sea. While it might not become the strongest, ruling a part of the sea should not be difficult for it. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 350, The Advent of Whale. Yuziyu ignored the excited hisses of Slytherin and turned his gaze towards the sea. After a while, as if sensing Yuziyu's penetrating gaze. Yeo. With a resounding song reminiscent of ancient times, tearing through the layer of ice, a tall column of water soared into the sky, splashing water everywhere. At the same time, a massive shadow gradually rose from the depths of the ice. The next moment, crack, crack, crack. Amid sounds of the layer of ice breaking, a colossal figure leaped into the air. It was an orca, and the most ferocious type at that. His body was adorned in black and white, and his dorsal fin on his back stood erect, curving up to 2 meters. Sharp teeth lined either side of his powerful jaw. At first glance, he looked extremely majestic yet ferocious. Eo. An inexplicable whistle echoed through the sky as visible ripples spread in all directions. Fortunately, these sound waves did not carry any killing intent. Otherwise, the expanding sound waves alone would be enough to shake the air and tear the earth apart. Because this was a very terrifying power of orca, ultrasonic waves. Its degree of terror was beyond what others could comprehend. Even Yuziyu, when he saw it first, couldn't help but narrow his eyes slightly. Among peers of the same level, few can truly compete with this orca. Smiling, Yuziyu gave his most sincere praise. Just at this moment, as if sensing Yuziyu's gaze, this mutant orca dived into the sea again. However, his pair of giant eyes faintly revealed above the sea level were quietly staring in the direction of Yuziyu's tree body. He seemed to be waiting. And this was the result of Yuziyu's suggestions some time ago. However, it couldn't be called suggestions anymore. To a greater extent, the mutant orca had willingly joined Misty Mountain and pledged allegiance to Yuziyu. In exchange, Yuziyu, to a certain extent, provided protection for him and his tribe. Unlike on land, the sea was riddled with dangers. Even this orca could not guarantee that he would be alive tomorrow. As the leader of a pod of mutant orcas, if he were to fall in battle, his tribe would definitely be in danger. For this reason, he chose to lower his proud head, vowing his allegiance. While Yuziyu was immersed in cultivation, this mutant orca, obeying Yuziyu's arrangements, relocated his pod to this part of the sea. His pod was not large. There were just 10 orcas within it, most of whom were Tier 1 Transcendents. As for Tier 0 Transcendents, there were none. Although this level of strength could not be considered weak in the ocean, it seemed to be lacking. This only considering they were within this shallow sea. If they were to move deeper into the ocean, not to mention occupying a territory, surviving alone would be considered a blessing. However, now this mutant orca was very satisfied. Thanks to Yu's presence, the powerful mutant sea creatures in this shallow sea had all been cleared, and there were even frozen mutant sea creatures in some ice layers. Territory and food both were abundant. Furthermore, on the peak of the distant island, there was a divine tree rooted, guarding diligently. Such a treatment could be considered nothing short of excellent. So, how could the mutant orca be dissatisfied? Now, as it looked towards the towering tree in the distance, shrouded in ice and snow, disappearing into the clouds, a hint of reverence flickered in his eyes. With a touch of unfamiliarity, yet exceptionally clear, a voice rang in Yu's mind. And, nodding slightly, Yu looked at the mutant orca with a satisfied expression. In terms of combat power alone, he should be on the same level as Bull Demon, just a bit inferior to Ninetails and Brewmaster. But Bull Demon and the other mutant beasts are land-based while he's a ruler of the ocean. While in water, Ninetails and Brewmaster might not be able to handle him. They might even lose to him. At this moment, as if thinking of something, Yu straightforwardly requested, without any hesitation, "Whalefall, I need you to help me with something." Saying so, Yu's branch swirled through air, wrapping around Slytherin and shooting it towards the mutant orca. Whalefall was the name Yu had given to this mutant orca. When a whale dies in the ocean, its body eventually sinks to the seafloor. Humans have given this process a name, whalefall. A whale's carcass can nourish an entire ecosystem for up to 100 years. This is the last warmth it leaves to the ocean. The reason Yu gave this mutant orca this name was also with the meaning of regaining new life. But more importantly, it sounded nice and was introspective. It belongs to the ocean, take care of it well. With these words, Yu's branches loosened, placing Slytherin next to Whalefall. Hiss, hiss, Slytherin instantly started hissing continuously, seemingly puzzled. But before it could hiss once more, Yu's gentle voice echoed in its heart. "Go with Whalefall. When you've reached Tier 2, I will come and pick you up." Hiss, hiss, Slytherin hissed a few more times, its hisses faintly tinged with excitement. At this moment, Slytherin also shifted its gaze to the nearby Whalefall. Fortunately, although Whalefall was massive in size as the leader of its pod, he was very gentle to his companions. Eow. An inexplicable whistle echoed in Slytherin's mind, making it considerably relieved. Whalefall, proficient in ultrasonic waves, was also known as the Master of Languages, was fluent in numerous languages. Just by hearing Slytherin's hiss once, Whalefall had already found the corresponding frequency, and responded in the most familiar tone. At this moment, glancing at the distant divine tree, Whalefall enveloped Slytherin in seawater before slowly sinking into the sea. "Master, I'll take the leave first." "Go ahead." Smiling, Yu's also shifted his gaze, no longer paying attention. "The next time I see Slytherin, it should give me some pleasant surprise." Thinking of this, a hint of anticipation appeared in the depth of Yu's eyes. However, when his gaze returned, looking at the nearby golden monkey with multiple pairs of ears, and that eager look on his face, Yu could not help but smile wryly. He had forgotten about this guy. "But, you don't seem to need my guidance." As if sensing something, Yu lifted his gaze. After a moment, a slowly approaching golden monkey carrying a long stick on his shoulder, entered Yu's sight. Thump, thump, thump. Each step of his seemed to have a mysterious rhythm, as if stepping on people's hearts, causing the listeners to slightly shake. This was the mysterious golden monkey, one of 3 generals under Yu's command. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 351, The Mysterious Golden Monkey. "Greetings, Master," a calm voice echoed in the distance as a golden monkey, about the height of a person, bowed down. And, nodding, Yu glanced at the timid-looking Oris near him and asked with a smile, "Are you here for him?" Although it was a question, Yu's confident tone slightly startled Golden Monkey. After a moment, with a bitter smile, Golden Monkey frankly answered, "Master, you already knew. On my territory, I naturally know everything about your actions." With a smile, Yu continued, "It seems you are quite concerned about this little guy. If I'm not mistaken, you have secretly observed him many times, haven't you?" Nodding, Golden Monkey admitted, "Indeed." Having admitted, Golden Monkey slowly raised his head, staring straight at Yu's tree form. In a trance, he saw a towering giant tree spanning across the sky and earth, its thousands of mystical chain-like branches dancing in the air. However, Golden Monkey knew this was not an illusion. It was all reality. Ever since that transformation, his eyes seemed to possess a mysterious power, capable of peering into the unknown. Like when he looked at 9 tails, he saw 9 colossal tails that spanned across the sky, whipping through the air. Or when he looked at Bull Demon, he saw a demonic creature wielding a giant axe. And now, all of them were slowly coming true. Elder sister has embarked on the rare path of celestial fox in the last era, while second brother had chosen the path of an unparalleled demon. As for master, heaven, reaching, Golden Monkey softly murmured in his head, but before he could finish speaking, his entire body suddenly shuddered as if these words were forbidden. Ha. Taking a deep breath, suppressing the sudden fear rising in his heart, Golden Monkey raised his head again. The next moment, as his gaze met with Yu's, Golden Monkey's flickered with determination, as if he had made his mind. He stepped forward and asked, "Master, have you noticed anything unusual about me recently?" But of course. Smiling, Yu did not conceal anything, answered straightforwardly, "In the misty mountains, I occasionally saw you sitting on a peak, gazing at the sky as if contemplating. Later, after arriving on the island, you were always gazing at the sea, and your eyes were filled with complexity." At this point, Yu looked towards Golden Monkey and emphasized, "It seems you've some unknown past." "Past?" Hearing this, Golden Monkey heaved a helpless sigh and stated with a bitter smile on his face, "Master, you have nurtured me bit by bit until now. Naturally, you know that I used to be a mischievous wild monkey. But..." At this point, a trace of reminiscence appeared in the depths of Golden Monkey's eyes. After a pause he added, "But since I've become a Tier 1 transcendent, fragments of memories would occasionally flash in my mind. These memories are quite jumbled and..." Before Golden Monkey could finish, Yu abruptly interrupted. "You don't need to go into details. Since it's your destiny, keep it in your heart." At this point, Yu emphasized in a rare serious tone, "Remember, in this era of survival of the fittest, you can't trust anyone." "Can't trust anyone?" Murmuring, Golden Monkey shook his head and added with a smile, "Except for Master." "That's because I have a better destiny," Yu nonchalantly responded, lightly chuckling. Now he has grown strong and need not to hide some things that much. Though, the concept of evolution points was not something he would openly discuss. It would not play much significance if he did say it. Nevertheless, compared to other mutant beasts and even humans, his evolution points were indeed a tremendous stroke of luck. Listening to Yu's frank answer, Golden Monkey's expression slightly froze. A better destiny? With a wry smile, he could not help but recall the scenes of every time they brought prey, Yu would personally kill it. Perhaps that's Master's fate and fortune. Thinking about this, Golden Monkey shook his head helplessly and stated with a sigh, "Compared to you, my destiny is indeed not worth mentioning. At most, it's the inheritance of a great monkey demon from the previous era." After sighing, Golden Monkey looked at the nearby Oris and added, "Master, the reason I came this time is for Oris. In my memory, our monkey clan once had a divine monkey who was unparalleled in strength, who single-handedly overwhelmed most of the Demon Beast clan, and even carried the banner of the Demon Beast clan, and competed against myriad races. That monkey also had multiple pairs of ears. According to the rumors, that divine monkey possessed amazing talents: sharp hearing, the capability to understand principles, the ability to see the past and future, and everything was clear to him. He was truly a proud son of heavens. So..." Before finishing his words, Golden Monkey gazed towards Yu with a begging look. "So, you want to train Oris?" With a playful tone, Yu asked with interest. "Yes." Nodding repeatedly, Golden Monkey frankly stated, "In my inherited memories, there is a tempering method of the monkey clan, which can allow Oris to thoroughly remold himself. Then there is also the universal staff that only the prodigies of the monkey clan can learn. If he succeeds in practicing it, it could become Oris' strongest divine ability." Listening to Golden Monkey, Yu's expression froze in shock, which was quite rare. Tempering method that can allow one to remold oneself? Universal staff, the strongest divine ability? These sounds so amazing. Should I have listened to Golden Monkey to the end and not have interrupted him? Yu criticized himself in his heart, but he did not regret it. Golden Monkey said that they belonged to the monkey clan. So, could he even cultivate it? However, in the future, if he encounters a bottleneck in his cultivation, he might be able to draw some inspiration. At this moment, looking at the still puzzled Oris, Yuziu smiled and stated, "All right, I'll entrust Oris to you. If you need any resources, just talk to your elder sister. She will arrange it." "Thank you, master." Thanking in a joyous voice, Golden Monkey once again respectfully bowed. After a short while, watching the departing back of Golden Monkey and Oris, Yuziu fell silent. The sight of these two figures, one big and one small from a distance, reminded him of two familiar names. Unfortunately, compared to two divine monkeys who once fought fiercely in the heavens and on the earth in his memories, they now seemed too immature. The gap between them was like between heaven and earth. They were truly incomparable. However, as if he had noticed something, Yuziu's gaze shifted to the end of a branch. There lay a sheepskin scroll. It looked quite new and it should have been made recently. And this was the gift that Golden Monkey had given to Yuziu before leaving. Presumably, it should be an impressive divine ability from the previous era. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 352, Enlarging and Shrinking at Will Divine Ability. Divine ability? Since Golden Monkey was so serious about it, it should be quite impressive. Skeptical, Yuziu's branch slowly unfurled the sheepskin scroll like a human arm. The next moment, four bloody words caught his attention: enlarging and shrinking at will. Size, manipulation. Muttering to himself, Yuziu's face became exceptionally solemn. Regarding the size manipulation divine ability, Yuziu was naturally familiar with it. According to the legends of Taoism, there were 72 transformations such as summoning wind and storm, transforming scattered beans into soldiers and so on. Enlarging and shrinking at will was one such ability that allowed one to change their size at will. The 72 transformations in Taoism were ancient legends, not the kind recorded in ancient books about changing into rocks, trees, and the likes. Instead, they refer to various miraculous transformations that one could do when one reached an extremely high level in cultivation. The term transformation implied ease. Of course, in ancient texts to advocate these divine abilities, a large part of them was exaggerated and imaginative. While 70% of the things about them were exaggeration, some of these transformations were indeed real. Just like the divine ability on the sheepskin scroll in Yuziu's hand, which Golden Monkey had inscribed with his blood essence, it was one of the extremely tyrannical divine ability. It was not as simple as changing the size. Changing the body size did not reduce one's defenses, thus achieving the effect of tempering the body. Yuziu cast a deep look in the direction of Golden Monkey's departure. Suddenly he realized that he might have underestimated Golden Monkey, who had inherited the legacy from the previous era. For Golden Monkey to casually bestow such a divine ability, the original owner of the inherited memories must have been extremely extraordinary, Yuziu muttered to himself, but he did not delve too much into it. Things were excellent already. By using his blood essence to write, Golden Monkey had clearly expressed his intentions. Furthermore, Golden Monkey had also given Yuziu such a precious divine ability. Although he did not know how valuable this divine ability was, seeing the inexplicable aura radiating from the blood essence on the sheepskin scroll, Yuziu's expression became solemn. After all, one's blood essence was directly connected to one's quintessence. A substantial amount of blood essence would require to inscribe a sheepskin scroll with blood essence like this one. Even Golden Monkey would need 1 or 2 months to recover, and that was under the condition of abundant resources. At this moment, Yuziu took a long deep breath as his gaze became a bit serious. The enlarging and shrinking at will divine ability was of special importance to Yuziu. Perhaps Golden Monkey had chosen it intentionally. This divine ability was truly very important for the current Yuziu. Even with most of his increasingly massive body rooted deep underground, one could easily tell his sheer size from the parts that were visible. Furthermore, while his massive size provided Yuziu terrifying combat power, it also made it challenging for him to move. Just like now, even if Yuziu could ride the waves thanks to the terrifying ability River of Earth, it caused quite a huge commotion. If he tried chasing after an enemy, Yuziu would simply not be able to, and his enemies would easily escape. Moreover, his overly massive body made him a living target. If he were to engage in war with humans, Yuziu would not be able to withstand their indiscriminate nuclear strikes. As such, one could imagine the importance of enlarging and shrinking at will to Yuziu. With this divine ability, apart from everything else, Yuziu could at least gain the initiative. He could reduce his size to that of a human, he could slowly emerge at the center of a city, becoming an inconspicuous ordinary willow tree. When needed, he could return to his original size, unleashing his formidable power. Furthermore, this was just Yu Ziyu's first thought upon seeing this divine ability. In that case, even if I don't break through to Tier 4, I can truly go out and explore. Yu Ziyu erupted into a rare moment of hearty laughter. He found Golden Monkey's gift to be quite satisfying. Only at this moment, as if realizing something, the corners of Yu Ziyu's lips suddenly twitched. Although it was a divine ability, he seemed unable to learn it. Not to mention anything else on the entire sheepskin scroll besides the first 4 words, enlarging and shrinking at will, he could only understand some descriptive words on the entire scroll. For instance, if one mastered this divine ability to an elementary level, one could shrink to the size of a dust particle, or enlarge to the size of a mountain. The words after it seemed like a mystery to Yu Ziyu. He felt like an illiterate reading a book. How should I begin? Muttering, Yu Ziyu fell into contemplation, staring at the sheepskin scroll. However, before he could think any further. Screech! Suddenly, a sharp, high-pitched cry reverberated through the horizon. Looking up, Yu Ziyu saw a peregrine falcon shooting straight toward him like an arrow fired from a bow. And right behind it, in the distance, was a vast and mighty torrent. Taking a closer look, he could see 100-meter-long unconscious python within it. Master! Divine Tree, we're back. Amidst various greetings, numerous streaks of light shot out from the torrent. One streak resembled a shooting star, surging with flames. Another one resembled a white rainbow with a pair of wings flapping amidst it. Naturally, they were Nine Tails and White Tiger. However, at this moment, Yu Ziyu's attention was not on them. Narrowing his eyes, his gaze as if traversing space, landed on Bull Demon's shoulders. There, a mesmerizing 5-color spirit flower, so beautiful that it appeared to be embracing all the beauty of the world, was swaying. Amidst her 5-color radiance, her petals were vying to wither. Yet, every time they withered, new petals would be born again. Blossoming, withering. Amidst this repeated blooming and withering of petals, it had already finished one cycle. And the moment this cycle was finished, surrounding spiritual energy surged towards the spirit flower. Boom! Visible to the naked eye, a massive spirit flower vortex formed above the 5-color spirit flower. Is this the spirit flower they mentioned about? Muttering, Yu Ziyu's eyes sparkled with a hint of astonishment, a rare sight. Because he could sense an extremely formidable power from this spirit flower. However, this power was dormant, or to be more precisely, restrained, making it difficult for others to sense it. From another perspective, it could be said that this spirit flower had not truly completed her awakening. Her innate talents had yet to completely manifest. Otherwise, she would not give Yu Ziyu this kind of feeling. Thinking of this, Yu Ziyu's lips curled up slightly. I'd like to see how extraordinary you truly are. With a light chuckle, Yu Ziyu rolled up the sheepskin scroll, and slowly focused his gaze on the distant bull demon's shoulder. Boom! The next moment, a deafening roar resounded in his mind, shaking his mind a bit. But in a moment, 5-color radiance surged in his mind. What made Yu Ziyu even more bewildered was that this 5-colored radiance constantly intertwined, forming countless characters. Is the status screen of this spirit flower also extraordinary? Mumbling in a skeptical voice, Yu Ziyu could not help but be filled with anticipation. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 353, Fleeting Moment Flower. Race, Fleeting Moment Flower, marvelous flower of heaven and earth. Innate talent, instant, unawakened. It blooms and withers an instant. Fleeting moment flower, as dazzling and eternal as fireworks, can freeze time in an instant, but the corresponding consumption of spiritual energy is equally terrifying. Just to stop time for one breath requires 1,000,000 spiritual energy. Unique abilities. Enchantment, releasing a unique fragrance, she's able to easily manipulate living beings within a radius of thousands of meters. Only those with firm willpower and cultivation not inferior to her can resist. Blessing. A blessing from her can bestow the blessings target a large amount of spiritual energy, and also accelerate the recovery to a certain extent. Language of flowers. As one of the few top-tier marvelous flowers, where she is planted, all spirit flowers thrive, and to some extent, they will acknowledge her as their queen and obey her command. Gathering spiritual energy, she is able to easily increase the spiritual energy in her vicinity, several times more than an ordinary spiritual ground. Yuziyu gawked at the spirit flower in a daze, gasping in shock. Time, murmuring. Yuziyu's gaze could not help but flicker. Time was the most incomprehensible force, second to none. If gravitational force or ultrasonic waves belonged to second or third tier forces, then time was undoubtedly the first tier force. The only force that could be considered on par with it was space, and the mysterious and profound destiny. There was a saying that described them perfectly: time is king, space is ruler, and destiny is the emperor of cause and effect. This saying covered the four most mysterious and terrifying forces in the universe. As for the other forces, no matter how mysterious or powerful they were, in the face of these three forces, they had to bow their heads. It was not that other forces were weak. It was just that these three forces were on another level. Ordinary people dared not even think about them, let alone touch them. In a certain sense, Yuziyu also dabbled in space. The flying willow leaf blade could tear through space, carrying out long-range sniping. This was the most superficial use of space. Of course, this level of application was too shallow, to the point that even Yuziyu did not dare to claim to have mastery over it. This spirit flower's quintessence is actually related to time? Mumbling in a voice filled with disbelief, Yuziyu's gaze when looking towards the spirit flower was also filled with a hint of excitement. However, seeing the note about needing 1,000,000 spiritual energy just to freeze time for one breath, Yuziyu quietly suppressed his thoughts. This was not a force he could touch at his current level. It was no wonder she had not awakened it until now. With her current strength, let alone awakening, even if she awakened it, using this innate talent would suck her dry in an instant. Furthermore, freezing time for one breath was not as simple as it sounded. A powerhouse could accomplish many things in just a single breath. Especially someone like Yuziyu, who was proficient in offense. If the enemy was defenseless, regardless of whether they were in the same tier as Yuziyu or even surpassed him, he could say with absolute certainty that he could take their lives on the spot in that one breath. It was not an overstatement, but a kind of confidence. Just like the Tier 3 mutant octopus back then, if Yuziyu had failed to mount his defenses in a timely manner, and was late by even just a breath, he would have suffered serious injuries. In a battle between peers, a slight mistake could push one to the point of no return. Moreover, if his spiritual energy someday became profound and abundant enough to bear the terrifying consumption of 1,000,000 spiritual energy per breath or for a few breaths, his enemy would not even notice they had lost their lives. Of course, how to specifically use this innate talent still needed much deliberation. At present, Yuziyu could only think of the most rudimentary application of this innate talent. If this spirit flower had trained a little in it, she might become several times or even dozens of times more fearsome. As these thoughts flashed in his mind, Yuziyu's eyes could not help but be filled with envy. Unfortunately, this spirit flower happened to be a marvelous flower of heaven and earth, one that was favored by heaven and earth. As it suggests, innate talent, something one born with. Unless the spirit flower herself willingly reveals it, it would be impossible to pry into her abilities with ordinary means. This was completely unlike low-level mutant plants like the blood-red vine. While ordinary mutant plants did possess terrifying innate talents, their talents were not terrifying to this extent. In other words, the innate talents of ordinary mutant plants were not blessed by heaven and earth. However, those of the top tier were different. Their existences attracted the attention of heaven and earth. Incidents where mutant plant devoured each other to steal each other's talents rarely occurred with marvelous flowers like this. In a deeper sense, the marvelous flowers of heaven and earth had already surpassed the norms of mutant plants. Their existence itself was beyond human comprehension. As for how Yuziyu knew all this, looking at the colorful status screen in his mind, Yuziyu gradually understood the existence of the marvelous flowers of heaven and earth. Marvelous flowers of heaven and earth are treasures not confined to the universe. They have transcended the 5 elements. After a deep glance, Yuziyu no longer paid attention to her. According to the system, once my cultivation reaches a certain level, I'll become a heaven and earth spirit tree. At that level, my existence will have far surpassed the fleeting moment flower who is just a 5th grade fleeting moment flower. A marvelous flowers like her must undergo metamorphosis time and time again, until they reach the 9th grade. However, if I became a heaven and earth spirit tree, I'll be standing at the pinnacle of the world, becoming an overlord. Only those sages with divine abilities would dare to target me. But in this world there are no almighty sages. A cold smile bloomed on Yuziyu's lips. He naturally understood the law of the survival of the fittest. Fortunately, he was a step ahead from the rest. As long as his cultivation did not slow down, no one in this world would dare to target him. Just at that moment, as if sensing his presence, the petals of the five-color spirit flower on Bull Demon's shoulder slightly shuddered. Faintly, a fidgety voice echoed in the air, "I." Stuttering, the five-color spirit flower looked toward Yuziu's towering body in the distance, jaw agape. At a towering height of over 300 meters, his canopy was nowhere in sight, and disappeared into the clouds. Adorned with ice crystals, his snow-white willow branches glitter in the night sky. And as they gently danced in the air, they triggered a snowstorm in the vicinity. Not to mention Spirit Flower, the other mutant beasts like Nine Tails, who had been with Yuziu for a long time, could not help but sigh at the sight of the astonishing scene. They realized that they were in completely different leagues. Even if they became Tier 3 Transcendents, they would still be very far from the current Yuziu. The present Yuziu could already be deemed a quasi-Tier 4 Transcendent, someone others could only look up to. Just at that moment, Yuziu's voice suddenly resounded in the Spirit Flower's mind. "They told me that your talent is amazing, and after seeing you today, these praises were not an exaggeration." Ah! Shocked, the Spirit Flower's petals trembled violently. I just... Before the Spirit Flower could say anything, Yuziu's comforting voice sounded in her mind again. "Don't be nervous. No one here will dare to harbor any malicious intentions towards you." As his words fell, the snow falling from the sky was suddenly astir. Immediately afterward, in the astonished gaze of the Spirit Flower, a sparkling white-silver branch tore through the sky, and arrived before her. It looked like an invitation and yet also a welcoming gesture. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 354, Five-Color Aura. The arrival of the five-color Spirit Flower was a significant enhancement for the entire Misty Mountains. This improvement was not in terms of combat power but rather in terms of heritage. Keeping everything aside, just unique abilities of the five-color Spirit Flower, gathering spiritual energy and language of flowers could help in creating a vast garden. What did a flower garden signify? Just thinking about it made Yuziu's eyes shimmer with uncontrollable excitement. This is a real source of cultivation. With this in mind, Yuziu looking at the nearby five-color Spirit Flower which had landed on the canopy and asked, "If I send Nine Tails and the others to find some spirit flowers and their seeds for you, how long will it take for them to mature if they are planted around you?" Spirit flowers? The petals of the five-color Spirit Flower trembled slightly in excitement. After a moment, she nervously replied, "As long as there is sufficient spiritual energy, they should mature in about half a month." Speaking this, the five-color Spirit Flower cast a profound gaze at the towering tree rooted before her, and took a long deep breath before tentatively asking, "Divine Tree, can I absorb the spirit flowers?" "Absorb?" And, nodding repeatedly, the five-color Spirit Flower excitedly explained, "All spirit flowers and grasses can accelerate my growth. Initially, I absorbed all the spirit flowers and grasses in the entire Deadwood wetlands, and that's why it was so barren." This revelation took Yuziu slightly aback. His corners of lips twitched a little, looking at the five-color Spirit Flower, that appeared to be the embodiment of all the beauty of the world. He was truly taken aback by this revelation. After all, Yuziu thought that she might be a flower queen after reading the introduction on the unique abilities, language of flowers. But it definitely did not appear to be the case. In a sense, the spirit flowers and herbs seemed more like her food. Nonetheless, Yuziu liked it and did not mind it at all. Rather, he gave his nod, promising, "You can take 1/5 of the spirit flowers and grasses you cultivate." 1/5? Great, that's enough. Amidst a laughter as melodious as the twinkling of silver bells, the petals of five-color Spirit Flower could not stop trembling, giving the impression of a woman waving a flower branch. At this moment, looking at the cheerful Spirit Flower, Yuziu's corners of lips could not help but slightly curve upward. Moreover, whether it was an illusion or not, a subtle and mysterious feeling rose in Yuziu's heart. That feeling was vague and hazy. But honestly, Yuziu did not dislike this kind of feeling. Could it be that language of flowers also has an influence over me? The language of flowers granted the five-color Spirit Flower the ability to communicate with various spirit flowers and accelerate her growth. To a certain extent, numerous spirit flowers would also obey the commands of the five-color Spirit Flower. This was quite a terrifying ability. However, her terror lay not in combat but in creating a rich heritage and communicating with spirit flowers. It could be said that thanks to the language of flowers ability, Misty Mountains might no longer lack resources like spirit flowers in the future. In other words, transcendent mutant beasts would be born in Misty Mountains like bamboo shoots in spring. As for the secondary ability to communicate with spirit flowers, whether it could affect him, Yuziu could not say for sure. After all, the feeling he just had seemed not to be an illusion. Shaking his head, Yuziu stopped thinking about it and turned to Nine Tails, who was perched on the canopy, instructing, "Nine Tails, I'll leave the task of collecting spirit flowers and their seeds to you." "Understood, Master." Accepting the order, Nine Tails, treading waves of flame, headed towards the outskirts of the Arctic island. By the looks of it, she was going to organize manpower. Right at this moment, as if remembering something, Yuziu suddenly reminded, "White Tiger, Golden Ant and Thorns, you three will be staying with me for now. You can do as you please with the rest of the mutant beasts." "Got it?" Nine Tails momentarily paused, dumbstruck. However, given her intelligence, she quickly understood the reason behind it. "When we returned, Master did not give them any praises or blessings. I guess they have disappointed Master." Thinking this, Nine Tails also silently mourned for them for 3 seconds. Not long after Nine Tails left, the 5-color spirit flower took root in Yuziu's canopy, as if she was very close with Yuziu, before her petals started suddenly quivering. In a moment, much to Yuziu's astonishment, a terrifying suction emerged from the 5-color spirit flower. Consequently, the surrounding spiritual energy was drawn towards it. In an instant, a thin layer of frost covered the surroundings. The Arctic island was most rich in ice-attribute spiritual energy. As a large amount of ice-attribute spiritual energy converged towards one point, a faint ice fog filled the air. This was particularly noticeable in the vicinity of the ice-attribute spirit stone mine beneath the Arctic island. At this moment, because of the 5-color spirit flower, Yuziu's trunk above the ground was also covered in a layer of frost. "Is this your unique ability, gathering spiritual energy?" While Yuziu might be asking a question, his tone was very firm and confident. The 5-color spirit flower was left wondering how Divine Tree knew about this ability. Nevertheless, she still nodded in response and answered, "Yes, I can gather a large amount of spiritual energy with this ability. It's also because of this ability that spirit flowers can grow faster around me." "Amazing." In rare admiration, a hint of fervor flickered in Yuziu's eyes, looking at the 5-color spirit flower. The unique ability, gathering spiritual energy, was even better than he had imagined. Everything aside, just the current concentration of spiritual energy in the surrounding was so much that it was already suffocating. Located in the center of such a vortex of spiritual energy was no different from absorbing impure spiritual energy from low-grade spirit stone mines. Moreover, faintly, Yuziu keenly sensed that with time, this spiritual energy vortex was becoming bigger and bigger. At this moment, seemingly sensing Yuziu's astonishment, the 5-color spirit flower smiled triumphantly. "Divine Tree, the spiritual energy I gather will become more concentrated with time. It's just the beginning now. Once I adapt to the Arctic, the amount of spiritual energy I'll gather will be terrifying. It can even satisfy your cultivation needs a bit." "Ha ha ha. Satisfy my cultivation needs?" Yuziu extended his branches, muttering in a playful tone. In a moment, amidst the bewildered gaze of the 5-color spirit flower, the snow fluttering in the sky trembled, before a terrifying suction emerged, drawing the wind and snow toward one point. At this moment, if one were to look at Yuziu's tree body, he or she would undoubtedly see a vast vortex enveloping him. "Ha!" Staring in astonishment, the 5-color spirit flower was also somewhat dumbfounded at the sight of this scene. Can a mutant plant do something like this? Looking at the swirling clouds within a kilometer, the 5-color spirit flower could not help but doubt her existence. However, in the next moment, a playful voice echoed in the heart of the 5-color spirit flower. "Are you sure that you can meet my cultivation needs?" Hearing this voice, the 5-color spirit flower was dumbstruck, and her facial features froze. But after a moment, as if acting out of spite, a voice full of stubbornness echoed in the air, "I can." As the words fell, colorful radiance emerged from the gaps of the 5-color spirit flower. At the same time, a mysterious force suddenly enveloped Yuziu, surprising him. "Ding, detecting an unknown force. Do you want to consume evolution points to absorb it?" Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 355, Transaction with the 5-Color Spirit Flower. Consume evolution points to absorb? Yuziyu froze, slightly stunning. But after a moment, feeling the mysterious power in the air, Yuziyu no longer hesitated and gave his confirmation in a deep voice, absorb. Just as Yuziyu gave his confirmation, he suddenly discovered that the evolution points were depleting at a visible pace. 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. In just a short moment, almost 100,000 evolution points had been depleted. Furthermore, this rate of depletion was accelerating. But along with this, a mysterious force was seeping Yuziyu's body. It was an extremely strange force. Indescribable and incomprehensible. Feeling this force, Yuziyu could not help but be slightly shocked. That indescribable marvel and vastness made Yuziyu how small he was in this world. At this moment, Yuziyu pulled up his status screen, and witnessed a line of fuzzy words slowly forming in the innate talent column. Furthermore, these words were actually radiating a colorful radiance. Just one look at it gave a mysterious feeling. Innate talent. Instant 001. Consuming 1,000,000 spiritual energy, you can freeze time for a breath. Your current comprehension is less than 1,000th. Staring at the status screen in amazement at this extra line, Yuziyu fell into silence. Did I just obtain the innate talent of the fleeting moment flower? No, this still could not be considered as obtaining it, it could only be considered as a possibility at best. In just a dozen breaths, Yuziyu had already consumed hundreds of thousands of spiritual energy. Meanwhile, the spirit flower rooted on Yuziyu's canopy seemed to have weakened significantly, as if she had lost vitality. Are you okay? Expressing his rare concern, the tip of one of Yuziyu's branch snapped with a crack. As a drop of rich life essence fell, the aura of the 5-color spirit flower gradually began to recover. I'm okay, the 5-color spirit flower assured again and again, her voice filled with excitement. After a moment, she stared closely at Yuziyu and earnestly asked, does this satisfy your cultivation needs? Yuziyu was slightly stunned, but hearing the sincere tone of the 5-color spirit flower, Yuziyu admitted with a nod, it does. That's great. As if heaving a sigh of relief, the 5-color spirit flower paused before speaking again. If this can't satisfy you, then this miss is really powerless. What did you just do? Glancing at the fuzzy innate talent that had appeared on the status screen, albeit just 1,000th of the original, Yuziyu could not help but ask. Gather spiritual energy. As she spoke, the 5-color spirit flower grinned, proudly adding, this miss just used the quintessence to gather spiritual energy for you. Although it may deplete a bit of my quintessence, it's not going to leave a significant impact on me. I'll recover it after resting for a while, and besides, you gave me this precious essence too. As she spoke, the 5-color spirit flower's petal held up the vibrant green drop, gently swaying left and right. She appeared to be dancing in joy and excitement. All right then, after a long silence, Yuziyu looked at this somewhat innocent girl and sighed imperceptibly. If my guess is right, what she just activated must be her innate talent. Although he did not know how she activated it, it was indeed crucial for Yuziyu. Because just now he used evolution points to forcefully comprehend the 5-color spirit flower's innate talent, instant. Although it came at a substantial cost, over 100,000 evolution points compared to the gains, this amount of evolution points was really negligible. Now, the comprehension of instant has only reached 1,000th if I continued like this. After 1 year, 2 years, what about after 10 years? Maybe one day I would be able to master this terrifying innate talent. It should be brought to notice that the 5-color spirit flower's innate talent, instant, was recognized by the system as a top-tier innate talent. If he could completely master it, not to mention other benefits, just the qualitative enhancement of Yuziyu's combat power would be substantial. And this was not including the boost to the potential and foundation brought by an additional innate talent. Thinking of this, Yuziyu felt a bit excited. Now, when he looked at the 5-color spirit flower, his gaze also carried a hint of inexplicable intentions. At this moment, as if sensing Yuziyu's strange gaze, the 5-color spirit flower trembled slightly. After a moment, she looked at Yuziyu with some surprise and asked, is something wrong? No, Yuziyu responded with a smile, putting on a nonchalant expression. However, at this moment, as if thinking of something, Yuziyu's branch snapped with a crack once more. The next moment, much to the astonishment of the five-color spirit flower, another drop of life essence fell on her petals. This is my life essence. In the future you can receive 1 or 2 drops every day. Really? Hearing this, the five-color spirit flower's voice was filled with excitement. Of course. Nodding, Yuziyu added with a smile, not only that but your share of Misty Mountain spirit flowers will be increased to 2/5. So many sudden changes not only came as a pleasant surprise but also gave her quite a bit of shock. Apparently, the five-color spirit flower was startled by Yuziyu's sudden generosity. However, sensing the sudden uneasiness of the five-color spirit flower, Yuziyu did not hide his intentions and straightforwardly explained, "In the future, can you help me in cultivating like you did today? Of course, under the premise that it should not hurt your vitality." In this rare moment of apprehension, Yuziyu felt like one of those losers confessing to a goddess. This feeling was quite uncomfortable. It was a mixture of hesitation and anxiety. It was hard to explain, but Yuziyu really did not like this feeling. If it were not for the fact that he could not force this matter, Yuziyu would not have gone through all this trouble. Just when Yuziyu was reeling from his complicated mood, a sudden laughter rang in his mind. That's it? So simple. Dropping these words, the five-color spirit flower suddenly smiled mischievously and half-jokingly asked, "Divine Tree, were you making a request to me earlier?" "Requesting to you?" Stunned for a moment, Yuziyu gave it a serious thought and denied decisively without hesitation, "How is that possible? This is just some kind of trade between us, a very fair trade." "All right." With a mischievous smile, the five-color spirit flower quieted down. However, faintly, Yuziyu could always hear faint chuckles. This girl? Amidst a sense of helplessness, Yuziyu genuinely breathed a sigh of relief. Now, he felt that development of his innate talent, instant, was no longer out of reach. With the cooperation of the five-color spirit flower and evolution points, he just needed some time to master this terrifying innate talent. As for the long time it would take, Yuziyu did not mind at all. The current him had plenty of time. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 356, Yuziyu's generosity. Roar, roar, roar. Amidst continuous roars and groars, the entire Arctic island became quite lively. However, watching White Tiger crouched in a corner not far away like a little white cat, not just Thorns, but even the recently joined five-color spirit flower found it amusing. She was even chuckling. "Wasn't he acting like a big shot the other day?" the five-color spirit flower asked in a somewhat peculiar tone, filled with curiosity. That night, she witnessed the ferocity of this winged white tiger, who, with only the strength of a Tier 1 transcendent, heartily fighting a Tier 2 superhuman. One could imagine how awe-inspiring that was. However, now, in front of the divine tree, he was actually huddled in a corner with his fur standing on end, appearing as if he was being mistreated. At the sight of this, how could the five-color spirit flower hold back her chuckle? "He is most afraid of Master." Offering an explanation, the nearby Thorns slowly walked over. "Afraid?" The five-color spirit flower looked at the nearby towering tree with a strange gaze, feeling even more astonished. The divine tree did not seem all that frightening, at least not to her. Not only did she get 40% of Misty Mountain spirit flowers, but she also received 1 or 2 drops of life essence every day. Such treatment genuinely gave the five-color spirit flower a pleasant surprise. Third brother is lively by nature, always making Master worry, explaining in a bit of helpless voice. Thorns picked up a willow leaf that fell from Yuziyu's tree body. At present, Yuziyu could be considered a treasure trove. Even just a single leaf was smooth and crystalline like jade, and was also surrounded by a faint glow. This particular leaf was specially given to Thorns by Yuziyu. "From now on, use my willow leaves and the flesh and blood of the mutant sea creatures to feed your blood vine, and strive to break through to Tier 2 as soon as possible." "All right." With a light laughter, Thorns picked up the willow leaf and brought it to her shoulder. The next moment, swoosh, accompanied by a swishing sound, a blood-red streak shot out. Then, to the surprise of the nearby five-color spirit flower, a bright red blood vine, exuding a strong sense of blood, opened a crack and swallowed the willow leaf. "Ha!" The five-color spirit flower looked towards the blood vine entwined around Thorn's shoulder as a perplexed look appeared on her face. Blood vine is a mutant vine that luckily gained sentience, but unfortunately, it was fierce and obstinate. It even tried to parasitize me, so... Thorns did not even finish the sentence, but what happened next was already guessed by the five-color spirit flower. Divine tree is indeed formidable, muttering in her heart. Five-color spirit flower could not help but shrink her body. Diminishing the blood vine's sentience, especially combining it with a human, was much more violent than her manipulation of living beings. At least, her manipulation was subtle. The method of dispersing blood vine's sentience and violently fusing it with other creatures was downright brutal. Even just thinking about it, the five-color spirit flower could understand the initial suffering of the blood vine. Ordinary people probably can't even bear that kind of pain. So, this is the terrifying side of the divine tree that's not known to others. No, it's not that it is not known to others, it's just me, the newcomer, who doesn't know about it. At this moment, Wuxia turned his gaze, focusing on the cold and detached golden ant not far away, who stood with his hands crossed over his chest. The golden ant was one of the most successful products of various secret experiments carried out by the humans. At least, in the eyes of Wuxia and others, it was a success. He had perfectly evolved with a racial innate talent, and even his racial innate talent had further evolved when he became a Tier 1 Transcendent, possessing formidable strength that made ordinary Tier 2 Transcendent cower. And this was the golden ant, the most domineering existence under Wuxia's command. However, he was born with some congenital deficiencies, which were causing a lot of delay in his breakthrough to Tier 2. Otherwise, with his talent, he should have broken through long ago. Thinking this, Wuxia frankly proposed, "Little fifth, I'll use life essence supplemented with spirit flower and herbs to create a small spirit pool for you. You can temper yourself in the spirit pool and try to make up for your congenital deficiencies, and try to break through to Tier 2. What do you think?" A smile bloomed on the golden ant's face upon hearing this. After a moment, he respectfully clasped his hands together and "Thank you, master." He would only smile like this when he was in front of Wuxia. In front of everyone else, even if it's Nine Tails and Bull Demon, he always wore a cold expression. Of course, there was one exception, and Golden Ant could not maintain a cold expression in front of this person either. That person was Qing'er, the one who brought him back from the human laboratory. Qing'er had saved his life. Meanwhile, Wuxia had given him a new life. To him, these two were his parents after rebirth. So, even though Golden Ant was proud by nature, he could not show a cold expression to them. "Okay." Nodding slightly, Wuxia's gaze shifted to the nearby five-color spirit flower before he asked, "Can I have one of your petals?" "Petal?" The five-color spirit flower was slightly taken aback, but she did not refuse. The next moment, a petal completely withered and fell on Wuxia's branch. At this moment, if one looked at the five-color spirit flower, they would witness a new petal growing in the very same location where the previous petal had withered. For the five-color spirit flower, her petals were like life essence to Wuxia, they could regenerate. If she lost too many petals, her vitality would be damaged, but occasional loss of one or two petals was not a big deal. Except, Wuxia's act of taking her petal made the five-color spirit flower a bit curious. However, her curiosity was short-lived. Boom, 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 followed by slight tremors in the ground, a basin-sized hole appeared not far away in the ground. Immediately after, she heard a shout. Crystallization. Then, the basin-sized hole started to crystallize at a speed visible to the naked eye. It looked as if ice was forming, but more radiant than ordinary ice, with a deep and beautiful brilliance resembling diamonds. This was Wuxia's divine ability, crystallization. Through long-term practice, Wuxia could not only crystallize his own body, but also crystallize the ground and even living beings in his vicinity. This kind of crystallization was akin to petrification, but several more times formidable than ordinary petrification. At this moment, looking at the distant basin-sized sparkling hole, Wuxia heaved a long, deep breath. The next moment, crack, crack, crack. Accompanied by a crisp snapping sound, drops of life essence dripped into the hole. At the same time, the petal given by the five-color spirit flower gently drifted to the center of the crystal hole. However, this was only the beginning. At this moment, if one paid attention, they would notice Wuxia's branches entering the canopy in succession. In the densest part of his canopy, there were numerous rare spirit flower and herbs hidden. They were all the harvests collected by various mutant beasts over the past half-year. Wuxia had been storing them and now it was time to make full use of them. Thinking this, Wuxia selected several spirit flower and herbs that could replenish vitality and tossed them into the crystal hole. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 357, The Mighty Tiger God. Go on. With a chuckle, Yu's branch pointed to a small spirit pool not far away, shimmering with a five-colored glow. It was unclear whether the energy of the five-color spirit flower was too strong, but even a petal turned the spirit pool into a kaleidoscope of colors. At first glance, the entire spirit pool appeared much more powerful. "Yes, master." Golden Ant gently nodded and started heading towards the spirit pool that Yu had created without a moment of hesitation. Splash! As the Golden Ant entered the spirit pool, his body fiercely jolted. He felt a tingling sensation all over his body, as if innumerable ants were crawling into his body, causing every part of his body to tremble at this moment. However, faintly the Golden Ant keenly felt his body growing stronger bit by bit. Not just the golden exoskeleton covering his body but also internally. From outside to inside, little by little, as if his body was thoroughly remolded. For a moment, the Golden Ant could not help but become focused, carefully studying every bit of the changes in his body. Meanwhile, watching the Golden Ant immersed in cultivation, a faint smile appeared on Yu's lips. "Not bad." Marveling, Yu's gaze shifted to White Tiger crouched in a corner not far away. "Since Golden Ant is near me, I can take care of him if some mishap occurs. So there's no need to worry. Now the most important thing to take care of is little White." Seemingly noticing Yu's gaze, White Tiger's nervous voice echoed in the air. Master, should I eat your leaves, or are you going to create a spirit pool for me too?" White Tiger asked with a flattering smile on his face. "What do you think?" Hearing Yu's playful voice, White Tiger could not help but shudder for some reason. At the same time, a very bad premonition gripped his heart. And indeed the next moment. Asterisk swoosh. Asterisk with a swishing sound, a silver-white branch pointed towards the depths of the North Pole. "Go." "Go where?" the bewildered White Tiger asked in confusion. "Towards the heart of the North Pole. Unless you've broken through, don't bother coming back." "Ah." White Tiger's face gradually stiffened as he slowly turned his head to look toward the distant heart of the North Pole, covered in heavy snow, utterly dumbfounded. "Master, isn't this unreasonable? Sixth brother got to eat your leaves and fifth sister got a spirit pool, but I," an aggrieved White Tiger complained on the verge of tears. "Do you have any other choice?" In a seemingly amused voice, one of Yu's silver-white branches danced in the air. Faintly, fierce swooshing sound could be heard. Asterisk gulp. Asterisk staring at the silver-white branch that seemed that it could lash at him at any moment, White Tiger gulped nervously, and without further hesitation, turned and rushed away from the Arctic island. I'm going." While shouting again and again, White Tiger spread his wings and shot straight into the depths of the clouds, like an arrow fired from a bow. Not long after White Tiger left roaring, a dumbfounded voice echoed in everyone's ears. "Divine Tree, your discriminating treatment is too obvious, isn't it?" Listening to the five-color spirit flower's voice, Yu's corners of lips curled up slightly before he burst into laughter and stated, "Believe it or not, White Tiger is probably enjoying himself right now." "Why?" The five-color spirit flower's voice was filled with confusion. Thorns was provided leaves from him, and Golden Ant enjoyed a bath in the spirit pool painstakingly formed by him. Meanwhile, not only does White Tiger not receive anything, but he is also driven away towards the unpredictable dangers in the depths of the North Pole. Isn't this tantamount to pushing White Tiger into a fiery pit? How could he be enjoying himself? Just then, an explanatory voice suddenly rang in the five-color spirit flower's mind. "Among humans there is a saying, teaching according to one's aptitude. Third brother is active by nature and can't stand to remain idle. Furthermore, third brother is a mutant tiger. Since ancient times, tigers have been known as the king of the forest. In myths and legends, tigers are even hailed as the god of slaughter, the god of war, all representing their belligerent and bloodthirsty nature. So, the best way to teach third brother is to let him go out, like a dragon returning to the sea or a bird entering the forest." While providing the explanation, Thorns had already made her way to Yu from a distance. She then lifted her beautiful eyes, staring closely at Yu as if asking, "Am I right?" Yu nodded slightly, affirming. Only, the next moment, as if remembering something, Yu further added, "Not only that." Saying this, Yu could not help but recall the surprise he received when he went through White Tiger's status screen just now. When did he actually develop such an ability? Smiling, Yu added, "Your third brother hid it quite well. He has secretly developed a terrifying ability." Saying this, 3 words flashed in Yu Ziyu's mind: Tiger's fiendish prestige. Little White must have developed it recently. Tiger's fiendish prestige. As the king of beasts, the white tigers might have become even more terrifying after becoming a transcendent. Every time it draws blood, the white tiger's might becomes even stronger, becoming denser and more concise. When it's completely formed, all the souls around white tiger emerges, turning the whole place into a fiendish region. Undoubtedly, this was quite a remarkable ability. Turning the whole place into a fiendish region was enough to explain the terror of it. This fiendish ability and white tiger's formidable combat power were truly a perfect match. This was also the reason why Yu Ziyu had sent White Tiger out as soon as he noticed the awakening of this ability. Talent cannot be wasted. Smiling in his heart, Yu Ziyu shifted his gaze towards the sky. The next moment, screech, screech, accompanied by 2 high-pitched cries, 2 peregrine falcons emerged from Yu Ziyu's canopy. Go and follow White Tiger. If he encounters any danger, seek help right away. Yes, master. Accepting the order, the peregrine falcons, Fowl 7 and Fowl 8, flapped their wings and flew in the direction White Tiger had left. Master, you might have a sharp tongue, but you sure have a soft heart. Watching the peregrine falcons depart, Thorns could not help but chuckle. It's quite normal, is it not? Not bothered by Thorns' teasing, Yu Ziyu cast a deep glance in the direction White Tiger had left and stated with a sigh, although he is mischievous, he is loyal and honest. He is an indispensable member of our Misty Mountains. That's true indeed. Third brother has always helped out in our fights, Thorns agreed, nodding. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 358, The Transformation of Golden Ant. Bit by bit, time passed, and in the blink of an eye, several days had gone by. During these days, Yu Ziyu heard the familiar system notifications multiple times. Ding, your familiar Aisha killed a Tier 1 Transcendent Mutant Black Rat, evolution points plus 2000. Ding, your familiar Aisha killed a Tier 1 Transcendent Mutant Yellow Rat, evolution points plus 2000. Listening to these sweet notifications and watching his evolution points rise, Yu Ziyu could not help but have a smile on his face. He rarely gets to experience the feeling of picking up such rewards for nothing. His familiar, Aisha, was a fire elemental life form with remarkable innate talent. She had recently become the head of 3 great nuns of Buddhism, and was in charge of a cavalier squad. The cavalier squad of Buddhism was not an ordinary unit. It was a bit similar to Chinese secret forces. Although it consisted of only 8 members, each one was a formidable Tier 1 superhuman. Currently, Aisha carried a heavy responsibility, tasked with eliminating the mutant rat infestations in several cities. So, the recent frequent notifications of evolution points were because of Aisha. At this moment, in a devastated city. In the center of the city, faded white buildings with exposed iron rods stained with crimson rust stood side by side, accompanied by cracked and shattered concrete walls. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Amidst hair-raising squeaks, countless emerald eyes appeared within various cracks. A tide of mutant rats, the most terrifying beast tide since the advent of Transcendent Era had ever seen. Ranging from tens of thousands to a couple of million, the rat tide, like a torrent of flood, blanketed the earth, devastating everything in its path. It could even raise a city to the ground in just a couple breaths. Fortunately, the innate talent of the rats could only be considered average. As such, their evolutionary speed was not that astonishing. As of now, the strongest mutant rat in the entire city was a peak Tier 1 Transcendent, whereas the Buddhist great nun sent to eradicate the rat infestation was a solid Tier 2 superhuman. Furthermore, she was an exceptionally talented Tier 2 superhuman. Go to hell. Muttering, a young girl whose face was covered by a purple veil suddenly raised her fair right arm. The next moment, boom boom boom, a purple sea of fire surged from the ground, crashing towards the ruins of the city like waves again and again. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The tide of rats burst into terrified screams as countless rats were reduced to charred carcasses before they could even react. Adding to the dread, with billowing waves of fire, almost half of the city appeared to be engulfed in flames. The temperature was so terrifying that the air distorted. Even that young girl's silhouette was obscured by the flames. Faintly, the silhouette itself seemed to have merged with the flames, and only the outline of a human figure could be discerned within the purple sea of fire. Unfortunately, this scene was unseen by anyone. Even the cavaliers accompanying Aisha, who were under her command, only knew that the great nun had extraordinary control over the fire element. Little did they know that their esteemed great nun had long become the embodiment of flames. Meanwhile, as if sensing something, the billowing sea of purple flames paused for a moment. A moment later, the sea of purple flames started swirling, forming a vortex of purple flames. And within the purple vortex, a tall and exotic girl affectionately gazed towards the north. "Master," murmuring, a beautiful smile bloomed on Aisha's lips. She had achieved it. More than just simply slaughtering beast tides like this to provide evolution points for her master, she had also succeeded in exerting pressure on China. As a result, friction had ignited at the border of China and the alliance of Southeast Asian nations. However, considering the threat of the countless beast tides, the two most powerful forces on this continent had mutually agreed to restrain their actions to some extent. Nevertheless, Aisha believed that this was not the end. Everything will proceed slowly along the trajectory Master predicted. Murmuring again, Aisha lifted her feet and started walking towards the northeast part of the city. There, a pair of cavaliers were obediently waiting for her. At the same time, on an island in the Arctic region, Wuxia shook his head helplessly. With the blood covenant between him and Aisha, he could naturally read some of Aisha's thoughts. Unfortunately, there was too huge of a distance between them, making it difficult for him to transmit his thoughts. According to Wuxia's estimation, transmission through half the continent was his limit. However, now the distance between him and Aisha spanned an entire continent. As such, Wuxia felt powerless despite his best intentions. After advancing to Tier 4, I should be able to transmit thoughts through the blood covenant? With a faint smile, Wuxia stated with a bit of certainty. Just at that moment, as if nothing happened, Wuxia raised his eyebrows. The next moment he looked towards a nearby spot. There, Golden Ant, quietly sitting in the small spirit pool, suddenly trembled. At the same time, the spiritual energy in the surroundings started seething, continuously surging towards Golden Ant. In the blink of an eye, a spiritual energy storm with a diameter of over 10 meters had formed around Golden Ant. He broke through so quickly. Wuxia secretly praised in his heart as his countless branches gently swayed. Boom boom boom, with a series of deafening claps, the snowstorm in the sky was swept away as a beam of sunlight fell straight on Golden Ant's spirit pool from the horizon. At this moment, the body of Golden Ant was undergoing visible changes at a rapid pace, visible to the naked eyes. Crack, crack, accompanied by sounds akin to the breaking of bones. Golden Ant's exoskeleton, that appeared as if it was cast from pure gold, grew thicker bit by bit, appearing even more robust and solid. Not only that, his blade-like 6 legs also gleamed like the edge of a blade. From a distance they gave the illusion as if they could tear apart anything. However, this was only the beginning. Even bigger changes appeared one after another. However, within these changes, what attracted Wuxia's attention the most was not Golden Ant's appearance, but the fact that 3 pairs of translucent wings emerged behind him. The wings were as thin as cicada wings, yet emanated a faint dark golden hue. Buzz, buzz, amidst continuous buzzing the wind seemed to howl. The next moment, with a whoosh, a streak of dark golden light tore through the air, disappearing from Wuxia's gaze in an instant. He had advanced to Tier 2 and has even grown wings. Satisfied, a light chuckle escaped Wuxia's lips. It was not surprising that Golden Ant could fly. After all, there had been ants that could fly since ancient times. And as a product of gene combination, Golden Ant, with the genes of many of his kinds fused, naturally could be expected to have genes of a flying ant. What Wuxia didn't anticipate was that, upon acquiring these 3 pairs of dark golden wings, Golden Ant would become remarkably handsome. In human terms, he looked quite dashing. His golden exoskeleton, appearing as if cast from pure gold, glittered under the sunlight. As his 3 pairs of dark golden wings on his back buzzed, he shot into the sky like an arrow released from a bow. His countenance exuded arrogance and coldness, with a touch of charisma. He seemed like a handsome warrior from ancient times, magnificent in every way. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 359, The Terrifying Golden Ant, Little Fifth. Master. Amidst a hoarse voice resembling metal friction, a dark golden figure quietly appeared not far away from Wuxia. His 3 pairs of dark golden thin wings on its back kept buzzing, creating ripples in the air. And there he remained, suspended in the air without swaying even a little bit, facing away from the setting sun. Pretty good. Praising Yuziyu looked at Little Fifth and narrowed his eyes slightly. The next moment, a series of information flowed into Yuziyu's mind. Race, mutant golden ant. Rank, Tier 2 transcendent. Innate talent, earth-shaking strength. The ant race's innate talent of strength has evolved again, possessing terrifying potential far surpassing ordinary innate talents. Its actual strength is 100 times that of an ordinary mutant ant's. It is a true talent of strength. Unique abilities, sharp scales, terrifying strength can only be carried by a powerful body. Its body is enveloped in a layer of golden scales resembling armor. 6 legs, its sharp and scythe-like legs, under the influence of its terrifying strength, can cut through anything. Strength absorption, a terrifying ability born from a deep understanding of strength. It can absorb 30% of the strength and convert it into its own power, bursting into a double release. Thin dark golden wings, terrifying wings evolved just for the sake of pursuit, thin as cicada wings yet unparalleled in sharpness. Strength boost. This ability enables the host to multiply their strength once every 10 seconds at the cost of a significant amount of spiritual energy. Although temporary, it provides overwhelming strength that surpasses all limits. The number of uses is restricted by the host's physical limitations, and the strength cannot be infinitely increased. Furthermore, the host must avoid getting injured at all cost and can only dodge or defend, otherwise the enhanced strength will disappear at once. After going through Little Fifth's status screen, Yuziyu marveled silently. Putting everything aside, just the 2 new abilities Little Fifth gained, the thin dark golden wings and strength boost, clearly demonstrated Little Fifth's terror. Especially the strength boost. Even Yuziyu's gaze could not help but flicker when he saw it. Strength multiplies every 10 seconds at the cost of a large amount of spiritual energy. Even with Yuziyu's detached personality, the corners of his lips could not help but twitch. This is truly pushing himself to the extreme on the path of strength. Although he just might self-destruct if he failed to kill his enemies due to his physical limitations, Little Fifth would definitely be nearly invincible in the future. There is hardly anyone who can contend with him among his peers. With his already formidable strength boost and his Tier 2 cultivation, Little Fifth can unleash strength that would leave even Tier 3 transcendents in shock. Yuziyu even suspected that he might even pose a threat to Tier 3 transcendent if he became a peak Tier 2 transcendent. This recently gained ability was just that terrifying. Given Golden Ant's physical strength, if he went all out, he should be able to amplify his strength 3 to 5 times. At that time, Golden Ant's strength would have truly reached an awe-inspiring level. Although it was highly likely to be a one-shot attack, if his attack did hit the enemy, an ordinary Tier 3 transcendent would probably suffer more than just a scratch if not dead. Of course, it depended on the type of enemies Golden Ant encountered. If he encountered elemental lifeforms like Chingang and Aisha, or soft-body creatures like the mutant octopus, no matter how much he amplified his strength, he would be completely helpless. This was the so-called natural restraint. There was no absolute perfection. Even a mutant beast like Golden Ant, who excelled in fearsome strength, was destined to be encountered in other aspects. Furthermore, if Golden Ant encountered someone with terrifying vitality like Yuziyu, he would be even more helpless. If he and Yuziyu were in the same tier, Yuziyu could easily take a few to dozens of hits without any major issues, and thanks to his massive vitality, he would have recovered from the damage in a flash. At this moment, as if sensing Yuziyu's scrutinizing gaze, Golden Ant clenched his fists and stated, resolutely and straightforwardly, "Master, I feel that I'm very strong." As he spoke, Golden Ant clenched his fists even more tightly. The next moment, with a crack as if the air had exploded, a red glow bloomed around Golden Ant's right fist. That deep and profound red glow appeared in an instant, and changed the whole demeanor of Golden Ant. If he was somewhat reserved before, now he was exuding a sharp aura. His terrifying momentum even affected the surroundings. For a moment, wind started howling around him. "Now, how much can you boost your strength?" Yuziyu asked with interest, calmly looking at Golden Ant. Golden Ant was not at all surprised by Yuziyu's question. All the mutant beasts who had been following Yuziyu for a long time knew that Divine Tree possessed a unique ability to see through their essence. It was precisely because of this ability that Divine Tree's guidance often hit the nail on the head. After a moment of contemplation, feeling the changes in his body, Golden Ant gave a relatively accurate figure, about 2 to 3 times. As he spoke, Golden Ant circulated his spiritual energy. The next moment, a loud clap resounded as if the air had exploded. At the same time, black cracks started spreading around Golden Ant's clenched fists at a rapid pace, resembling a spider web. However, these cracks were so fleeting that it was difficult to capture them. Only Wuxia, who had been paying close attention to him, barely noticed them. His strength can even tear through space itself? Little shaken, Wuxia meticulously examined Little Fifth's current state. At this moment, he was astonished to find that Little Fifth's body was slightly trembling. His right arm, which appeared to be cast from pure gold, even had imperceptible cracks. However, as Little Fifth's resolve remained firm, even if his body cracked, he remained unfazed. Then taking a long deep breath, Golden Ant fiercely punched with his right fist. Boom. With an earth-shattering roar, his terrifying power enveloped the air that was unable to escape in time, blasting it, creating a towering white pillar of light that shot straight towards the sea. The next moment, boom. With another thunderous roar, waves several tens of meters high rose into the air. Visible to the naked eyes, a white pillar of light penetrated straight into the sea, tearing through it, leaving behind a massive vortex that stubbornly refused to heal. Air cannon, as the terrifying power repeatedly compresses the air until it condenses into a single point, forming a white beam of light. The resulting shockwaves are so powerful that individuals several kilometers away could be knocked off their feet. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 360, 3x Strength Boost. Air cannon, ha! Muttering to himself, Wuxia's pupils contracted at the sight of Little Fifth punching through the sea. The strength he had just displayed was not that inferior to a late-stage Tier 2 mutant beast specializing in strength. This was the current state of Little Fifth. He had just stepped into Tier 2, but thanks to his unique ability, Strength Boost, he could erupt with such terrifying power. Yet just at this moment, a panting Little Fifth's figure slowly descended to the ground. At this moment, if one were to look at him, he or she would certainly find this petite figure down on his one knee. It's really a terrifying ability, even my body can't withstand it. Speaking while gasping in shock, Little Fifth looked at his right hand, which was riddled with spiderweb-like cracks, furrowing his brow. He had already exercised all his control, but even so, when he amplified his strength for the third time, his body could not bear it. Especially his right arm, which bore his strength, had been significantly damaged. Right at that very moment, a silver-white branch suddenly swept over Golden Ant's right arm. Immediately after, Golden Ant felt a refreshing sensation coursing through his arm. At this moment, his right was healing at a slow yet visible pace. Doubling your strength should be normal for you, and tripling your strength should be the limit. If you forcefully triple your strength, your current body will be riddled with injuries. As for quadrupling or even quintupling your strength, that would be nothing more than suicide for you right now. Wuxia deeply examined Golden Ant's current state and gave his earnest analysis. I see. Softly murmuring, Golden Ant's corner of lips rose into a wry smile as he stated in a self-deprecating tone, "It seems I've grossly overestimated myself. I thought I could maintain a triple strength boost." Triple? A shadow of a smile appeared on Wuxia's lips as he questioned in a playful tone. After a moment, seeing Golden Ant's stunned expression, Wuxia finally explained, "Your strength is already fearsome, and now, can you even imagine what tripling it means?" After a momentary stupefaction, Golden Ant fell into contemplation. Already fearsome strength? Tripling it? Feeling all kinds of emotions racing in his heart, Golden Ant suddenly discovered that he might have underestimated himself. Just at this moment, another voice reverberated in the air, "Oh my God, you're not human, and even your subordinates are not human either." Hearing the voice filled with shock, the picture of a little girl with an incredulous look flashed in Golden Ant and Wuxia's mind. With the corner of his lips slightly twitching, Wuxia turned his gaze in the direction of the voice. Just as I thought. The next moment, a 5-color spirit flower entered his sights. Her 5 petals happened to be trembling continuously, as if she was in disbelief. "I'm not human in the first place." Emphasizing this point, Wuxia continued, "As for Little Fifth's extraordinary talents and his current combat power, it's not surprising either." "Indeed, talent is everything." Mumbling in a somewhat aggrieved tone, the 5-color spirit flower became completely wilted, like a frostbitten eggplant, thoroughly disheartened. Yuziyu was a bit perplexed at the sight of the current state of the five-color spirit flower. At this moment, as if sensing Yuziyu's confusion, the five-color spirit flower explained, a rare thing on her part, "My innate talent is not good, I just recently broke through." Innate talent is not good. Silently muttering in his heart, an ugly look appeared on Yuziyu's face. "You bastard. You're a marvelous flower of heaven and earth. Yet you say your innate talent is not good? How do you expect others to survive if you aren't good enough?" Had Yuziyu not have evolution points, he really could not guarantee that he could evolve faster than the five-color spirit flower. However, after giving it a thought, Yuziyu also understood a little. Oh yeah, her innate talent has still not awakened. Her terror would only truly manifest when she has become a Tier 3 transcendent, and possesses at least 1,000,000 spiritual energy. Thinking this, Yuziyu cast a sympathetic gaze at the five-color spirit flower. She is indeed quite unlucky. Other mutant beasts and even humans remain in obscurity because of their poor innate talent, but she nearly died because her innate talent is too outstanding. If Bull Demon had not taken any action, she might have never been able to blossom again. Sighing, Yuziyu shifted his gaze back to Golden Ant. At this moment, Golden Ant's injuries had mostly healed. "Go and recuperate," instructing him, Yuziyu once again provided a few drops of life essence to Golden Ant. Currently, Yuziyu was not lacking in life essence. Producing dozens of drops of life essence a day would not harm his quintessence. Of course, Yuziyu would not squander his life essence too much. Most of the life essence would be stored by Yuziyu. At present, Yuziyu had accumulated life essence equivalent to that of a wine pot in his tree heart. This was a so-called strategic resource. If used when necessary, it could even turn the tide. "Thank you, Master," Golden Ant thanked with a nod, taking the life essence. For Golden Ant, accumulation was the key. He reckoned that if he could keep accumulating, he should be able to try making triple strength boost the norm. Of course, it was just going to be an attempt. After all, only by trying the triple strength boost would he deeply realize how terrifying that state would be. His body felt like it was enduring the weight of thousands of pounds, even his breathing became difficult. Every moment, his exoskeleton was making crisp cracking sounds. "Triple boost," softly murmuring, the slowly retreating Golden Ant had a gleam flashing in the depths of his eyes. Just moments later, Yuziyu's voice suddenly echoed in Golden Ant's mind, "If you want to boost your strength more, it would be best to look for Old Second." Old Second? Whispering to himself, Golden Ant's corners of lips curled up slightly. Right. With Second Brother's gravity field, tempering my insides would not be a problem. If I remain inside Second Brother's gravity field for an extended period of time, the possibility of making triple boost a norm should increase significantly. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 361, The Changes in the Sea. While Yuziyu was diligently nurturing mutant beasts like Golden Ant, an unprecedented change occurred in the deepest part of the ocean. Crack, accompanied by a cracking sound, a beam of bright light suddenly rose from the pitch-dark depths of the ocean, where one could not even see their own fingers. On a closer look, it turned out to be a fissure in the previously bottomless trench about 1 meter wide. And through this narrow crack, a beam of light rose, illuminating nearly half of the deep sea in a flash. An inexplicable low growl echoed from the depths of the ocean, along with a suffocating pressure. The next moment, an immense black shadow, seemingly endless and boundless, rose from the ocean floor. Huff, 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 akin to breathing, thunderous roars reverberated across the ocean. Just the slight movement of the massive shadow caused massive waves. Another inexplicable whistle resounded through the entire deep sea. Only, this whistle happened to be mysterious and ethereal. Nonetheless, in the midst of boundless loneliness, one could not help but be captivated. This was the call of a whale. However, what was even more shocking about it was that the size of this whale was simply too terrifying, to the extent that one could not see its end at a glance. Its terrifying majesty that almost seemed to have materialized, on the other hand, could be felt by everyone. Streaks of blue electrical arcs zapped across the water in the pitch-black depths of the ocean. "Who is calling me?" A lone and ancient voice filled with doubt resounded as the mutant blue whale looked in the direction of the call. After a moment, a beam of light illuminating an Aya caught its eyes. Through this beam of light, the mutant blue whale surprisingly saw a fissure in the deep sea, about 1 meter wide, and this seemingly inconspicuous crack made it slightly stunned. Just because at this moment, it felt the call coming from within the crack. With a surprised cry, the mutant blue whale flapped its tail. With a deafening roar and swirling water, a section of the trench was leveled. Amid this turbid water, a circular altar emerged. The altar appeared immense, ancient and majestic, adorned with a hint of crystal-clear radiance. It exuded an archaic aura, as if it had existed for countless years. However, a closer look at the corner of the altar revealed that it had long been broken. Now, the beam of light illuminating the depths of the sea emanated from the center of the altar. What's this? In astonishment and suspicion, the mutant blue whale swayed its body, slowly swimming towards the edge of the altar. As it swam closer, the feeling of calling got stronger and stronger and even had a touch of anxiety. What the mutant blue whale found stranger was that this call surprisingly carried a sense of warmth, and was devoid of malice. What could it be? With perplexity, the deep-sea overlord approached the edge of the circular altar. But just then, with a loud rumble, the entire altar shook. Immediately after, an immense pressure came bearing down on the colossal body of the deep-sea whale. However, before the deep-sea whale could even cry, a deafening clap echoed in its mind as if his brain had exploded, as countless unfamiliar and fragmented scenes flooded into its consciousness. O prophet chosen by the Sea Clan, your existence is a blessing for the Sea Clan. Go dispel the ignorance and foolishness of the Sea Clan. Go lead the Sea Clan to true evolution. Merman Clan, Trench Clan, Sea Beast Clan, Sea Demon Clan, various races belonging to the vast sea had forged one of the strongest clans among the myriad races, the Sea Clan. And now, they need your guidance to reappear in the world. A majestic voice resonated in its mind as the depths of this terrifying deep-sea whale's eyes began to flicker with intermittent brilliance. After an unknown period of time, as if it had received some kind of enlightenment. An inexplicable cry echoed once again in the depths of the ocean. It was as mysterious and ethereal as ever, but compared to before, it had a touch of profoundness that was hard to fathom. I'll definitely lead the Sea Clan back to the pinnacle of the myriad races, a resolute voice filled with rare determination echoed. Meanwhile, rooted on the snowy peaks of an Arctic island, Wuxia suddenly shivered. For some reason he suddenly had a strange feeling, indescribable and incomprehensible. However, Wuxia still suppressed this feeling in his heart. At his level, he had already developed a sixth sense for certain unfathomable things. In other words, in some corner of this world, something significant might have happened that could affect him, yet he remained unaware. Interesting, muttering, Wuxia's gaze turned towards the vast and endless icy ocean. Whether it was an illusion or not, he felt that this expanse of ice, this vast and boundless blue sea seemed to have gained something extra. Is it from the depths of the ocean? Wuxia muttered to himself, dismissing it. He was not particularly concerned about it. Instead of pondering these groundless matters, relying only on speculation, he believed it was better to focus on himself. In his opinion, strength was ultimately the foundation for survival. And, more importantly, as if remembering something, Wuxia's expression suddenly turned cold. He lifted his gaze, looking at figures not far away riddled in wounds. There, the Titanoboa, a terrifying giant python almost 100 meters in length, happened to be coiled restlessly in a corner. Next to it was a towering wolf-like mutant beast, gnashing its teeth and staring at Wuxia's tree body. Not far from them was a golden figure as well as over a dozen superhumans. They were the mutant beasts and humans who had attacked Bull Demon to snatch the spirit flower. Among them, the Tier 2 mutant black horse had already been beheaded by Bull Demon. Its body had been used as food, with a significant portion already in Bull Demon's belly. As Bull Demon said, "I want to eat horse meat." Since he said it, it had to be realized. Otherwise, it would be hard to appease his mind, and the resentment lingering in Bull Demon's heart would be difficult to resolve. At this moment, looking at the towering giant tree, Bull Demon respectfully stated, "Master, all these guys are extraordinary. We've brought them back for you. It's up to you to decide what to do with them." Decide? With a cold smile, Wuxia's playful voice echoed in the air. They had been given a night to consider. What did they say? So far, no mutant beast or even human is willing to surrender and pledge allegiance to Misty Mountains. At this point, Bull Demon also cast a deep glance at the humans, at the few hesitating individuals, and chuckled. There are a few guys who said that they want to think about it. Think about it? Wuxia's icy cold voice shook everyone's heart. At this moment, gazing at the towering silver-white tree reaching the clouds from afar, a human could not help but turn pale. He had long heard of the terrifying reputation of the tree monster. But now, seeing it, he realized that the world had vastly underestimated the horror of this tree monster. The silver-white branches, each hundreds of meters long, swaying in the sky resembled dragons. Even with just a gentle sway, they created terrifying gusts, stirring a large part of the falling snow in the air. Upon closer look, the tree trunk, as dazzling as ice crystals, shimmered with a flowing crystalline radiance. It appeared mysterious and terrifying. It gave people a sense of powerlessness. However, this was not all. Looking around, he caught sight of extremely terrifying mutant beasts coldly staring at them. Gulp, unable to contain the fear in his heart, the Tier 1 superhuman gulped nervously. He broke into cold sweat and his body went limp. After a moment, his lips quivered, "Aye, Surin." However, before he could finish, with a swoosh, a silver-white radiance blinded his eyes. The next moment he felt a sharp pain in his chest before his eyes completely lost focus. You've been given the opportunity before, but unfortunately, you didn't cherish them. And do you really think that after harming Bull Demon and Spirit Flower, you can still survive? Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 362, Changes of the Secondary Roots. The very moment Uziyu's words fell, silver streaks shot through the air in succession before anyone, humans and mutant beasts alike, could react. Shrip, 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 accompanied by sounds of something piercing through the flesh, the hearts of humans and mutant beasts were pierced. The most frightening sight of all was the fate of the colossal python coiled in a corner afar. Hiss, hiss, amidst hisses of despair, black roots entwined around its body, and the next moment, boom, 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 along with the tremors, the entire colossal black python was dragged into the depths of the ground. At this moment, at the Titanoboa's location, apart from a bottomless ravine in the ground, nothing else remained. The rest is for you. Handing the instruction, Uziyu no longer paid attention to how Bull Demon and other mutant beasts would deal with the remaining carcasses. He began to immerse himself in cultivation. Meanwhile, in the depths of the earth, hidden from the eyes of the rest, Uziyu's countless roots penetrated the colossal body of the black python. Gulp, gulp, the roots expanded and contracted as if they were swallowing something as visible streams of spiritual energy flowed into Uziyu's body along the roots. A Tier 2 mutant beast, and the terrifying atavistic-type mutant beast at that held a significant meaning for Uziyu. Like now, Uziyu had absorbed thousands of spiritual energy in just a few breaths. More importantly, Uziyu felt an inexplicable energy entering his body. This energy was indescribable and incomprehensible. Even Uziyu could not explain it. However, he knew that this energy should be very important to him. Because when he devoured the carcass of the Tier 2 Titanoboa, he noticed the secondary root binding the Titanoboa undergoing some mysterious changes. On a closer look, he noticed that the withered bark had gained a rigid texture, resembling the scales of the python, and gave a deep and chilling sensation. Furthermore, the tip of this root had even taken a vague shape of a python's head. Powerful and menacing, it made this rough root appear even more extraordinary. Sensing this, Uziyu narrowed his eyes slightly. For some reason, a lore crossed his mind. According to lore, there was a black dragon at the root of the world tree Yggdrasil, that held up the entire world, constantly gnawing at its roots. When the roots were completely consumed, Yggdrasil would decay and the world would be destroyed. Now, glancing deeply at the menacing secondary root, resembling a python, the corner of Uziyu's lips could not help but rose. If I really became the world tree, I wonder if any black dragon would dare to gnaw at my roots? Muttering to himself, a mysterious smile appeared on Uziyu's lips. Unlike Uziyu's primary root that had transformed into a dragon, this secondary root of Uziyu had transformed into a python. Devouring the atavistic-type Tier 2 Titanoboa, Uziyu's roots had also absorbed a significant amount of Titanoboa's bloodline evolution. As such, the secondary root was influenced, and underwent inexplicable transformation. Whether this transformation was good or bad, even Uziyu could not say for certain. However, vaguely, Uziyu could feel that if he so wished, this secondary root of his might very well transform into a true colossal python, and could battle against heaven and earth. In other words, the combat power of this secondary root would be further strengthened. After all, compared to simple roots, the combat power of the python was definitely much stronger. Moreover, this python was no ordinary one, it was an overlord in the food chain, a Titanoboa. However, Yuziyu had no idea if there were any side effects of such transformation. Just at this moment. Hiss, hiss, inexplicable shrill hisses echoed in his mind, making Yuziyu involuntarily snort coldly. Umph. His cold snort reverberated across the sky like thunder, immediately followed by a mournful hiss. Much to Yuziyu's astonishment, a giant illusory shadow rose from the distant Titanoboa's corpse, before surging towards Yuziyu's secondary root the next moment. Can I now devour not only the body but also the soul? Yuziyu muttered in an astonished voice, feeling somewhat surprised. This secondary root had previously been upgraded to level 4, and even Yuziyu had yet to fully grasp its abilities. All he knew was that after having been upgraded to level 4, it could assimilate other things and make them a part of the tree root. It was just that he had not expected this devouring ability to be further enhanced. Yuziyu pondered and started planning the future. I'll look for a few more atavistic-type mutant pythons. If my guess is right, these atavistic mutant pythons might significantly increase my combat power. Of course, this is not something to be rushed. For now, cultivating and researching the enlarging and shrinking at will divine ability is of prime importance. Thinking this, Yuziyu dispersed the mutant beasts, and once again took out the sheepskin scroll that had the enlarging and shrinking at will divine ability inscribed. The dark blood-red characters resembled the sunset after dusk, with a touch of antiquity. In these 2 days the blood had already dried up. However, staring at the sheepskin scroll, Yuziyu still furrowed his brow. For someone like him, lacking in the inheritance of the previous era, the content recorded on the sheepskin scroll was too cryptic. Even with Golden Monkey's detailed notes, Yuziyu failed to understand it. No, it was more than that. Yuziyu even suspected that Golden Monkey himself might not be able to learn it. After all, the world had changed, and although divine abilities still existed, they were no longer as accessible as in the previous era. At this moment, Yuziyu's gaze shifted to the end of the sheepskin scroll and froze. As he had expected, there was a line written in tiny characters at the end of the sheepskin scroll. It seemed to be a note with a hint of caution. Divine tree, I'm not sure if I can be learned because until now even I've failed to learn a divine ability. What can I say? It seems that the world has changed, the principles are different from before. It requires slow, gradual adaptation. Slow, gradual adaptation. Muttering in a somewhat right voice, Yuziyu could not help but grind his teeth. Meanwhile, in a corner of this island, Golden Monkey, who was instructing Oris, suddenly shivered, and cast a furtive glance at the towering divine tree behind him. Divine tree, you noticed the note just now? Golden Monkey muttered to himself in an astonished voice as his heart raced to his throat. After all, he had been taking a hopeful attitude. As for whether Divine Tree could learn it, he was not optimistic at all. After all, divine abilities were not like other abilities. Not to mention the changes in the world, just crossing the threshold of divine abilities was as difficult as reaching the sky. Even in the previous era, only a few were able to master divine abilities. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 363, Enlarging and Shrinking at Will, the Art of Transformation. As Yuziyu carefully examined the sheepskin scroll, a cold system prompt suddenly interrupted his contemplation. Ding detected a grand divine ability, Enlarging and Shrinking at Will. Would you like to spend evolution points to comprehend it? Dumbfounded, Yuziyu was speechless for a moment. However, after a brief pause, he finally reacted as a look of ecstasy appeared on his face. Yes. Just as Yuziyu gave his confirmation, his evolution points started depleting at a visible rate. In just a few breaths, over 100,000 evolution points had vanished. Currently, Yuziyu had a little over 2 million evolution points. Subtracting 140,000 evolution points he spent to comprehend the 5-color spirit flower's innate talent, instant, he was left with near about 1.8 million evolution points. Now these evolution points were depleting at a terrifying speed. Meanwhile, Yuziyu fell into a trance at some point. However, just at this moment, a crisp system prompt's ring rang in his mind, followed by another prompt in the cold and artificial voice. Ding, you've consumed 720,000 evolution points, and you've comprehended the grand divine ability, Enlarging and Shrinking at Will. With this prompt, Yuziyu's entire body shook. Immediately after, a deafening clap rang in his mind as if his brain had exploded and countless profound pieces of information flashed in his mind. All things in this world are divided into principles and techniques. Divine abilities are principles, the very rules governing the changes in all things, the principle of constant harmony and universal balance. Whereas the abilities are techniques, the concrete external method of application. Thus, the principles constitute the foundations, hence, divine abilities are fundamental and techniques are the means. It is through the means that Tao is realized. The enlarging and shrinking at will is one of the 36 divine abilities. It belongs to the art of transformation, along with embryonic transformation and turning stone into gold. All of them constitute the Tao of transformation. The enlarging and shrinking at will is further divided into internal and external aspects. Internal means changing oneself and external means changing substance. Changing oneself means altering one's size, capable of controlling one's body. At the elementary level, one can grow to the size of hills and mountains, or reduce to the size of a grain or dust. At the advanced level, one can grow to the size of sun and moon or reduce. With the influx of this information, Wuxia's understanding of the enlarging and shrinking at will technique became even more deeper. And along with this, a mysterious force started coursing through Wuxia's body. After some unknown time. Hiya! Wuxia heaved a long deep breath as his eyes on the canopy slowly opened. So, this is the real grand divine ability, huh? Murmuring to himself, the corner of Wuxia's lips rose slightly. After a moment he shifted his gaze looking at his status screen. Grand divine ability, enlarging and shrinking at will, elementary level consuming a certain amount of spiritual energy, one can reduce their size to the size of a dust particle, or grow to the size of mountains and hills. Simultaneously the user's defense remains unchanged, only the size changes. Note, the bigger the transformation, the greater is the spiritual energy consumption. After going through his status screen, a smile gradually bloomed on Wuxia's lips. At this moment, a surge of spiritual energy erupted from Wuxia. Boom, 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 accompanied by surging waves like roars, the spiritual energy started boiling as if it had reached a boiling point. Moments later, much to Wuxia's astonishment, his tree body began to undergo a gradual transformation. With each breath, his body shrank by 3 meters. In just a few breaths, Wuxia's tree body had shrunk by a staggering 30 meters. What a strange feeling. Wuxia muttered to himself as his body continued to shrink at a terrifying speed. By the time Wuxia came to his senses, his 200-meter colossal body now stood only several dozen meters tall. At the same time, Wuxia's field of view had also been reduced to just 1,000 meters from tens of kilometers. However, that was not the most crucial change. The most glaring thing was that the great beasts under Wuxia's command had transformed into behemoths. The creatures that used to be tiny in Wuxia's eyes were now several times larger. Fortunately, the 3 great beasts had already left. Otherwise, with Wuxia's current size, he would have been easily crushed by them. I just shrank, didn't I? Wuxia mumbled in a voice filled with astonishment. He had yet to fully comprehend the situation. In just a moment he had shrunk from hundreds of meters to a dozen meters, a gap so immense that even Wuxia could not accept it momentarily. What was even more terrifying was that not only the exposed trunk had shrunk in size, but even the countless roots hidden deep within the earth beneath the entire island had also shrunk significantly. Even the primary root, resembling a wood dragon with a length of 10,000 meters, was now only 40 to 50 meters long. 40 to 50 meters might not be that long, but it was not that short either. However, compared to its size a moment ago, Wuxia's current primary root was terribly short. However, there was one silver line in all this. This state was temporary. At least, Wuxia's spiritual energy was depleting at a pace visible to the naked eye. Although the consumption of spiritual energy was almost on par with Wuxia's terrifying recovery, he could still clearly feel that this state relied on the support of spiritual energy. In other words, the very moment Wuxia cancelled the supply of his spiritual energy, he would return to being a towering tree that covered the sun. However, before Wuxia could fully explore this miniature form, a voice filled with confusion echoed in his mind, "Divine tree, how did you shrink? Wow, I can't believe it, you've become so small." The 5-color spirit flower cried in surprise again and again, her petals shaking non-stop. On another side, terrifying figures rushed over in succession. "Master, are you okay? Master, what's wrong with you? Lord Divine Tree." With deep concern and confusion, the bull-headed humanoid bull demon, and the straw hat-wearing brewmaster dashed over from beneath the snowy peak. "I'm fine." Yuziyu waved with his branch, attaching his terrifying spiritual energy on the 10-meter or so long silver-white branch. Boom! Yuziyu's size might have shrunk, but the terrifying spiritual energy coursing through his branch remained as formidable as ever, maybe even more terrifying than before. In just an instant, even someone as mighty as Bull Demon and Brea Master were pushed back about a dozen meters by a gentle force. They did not even have the time to react. Before this force they felt as tiny as ants. No, it was not as simple as ants. The spiritual energy attached to a single branch far surpassed the spiritual energy they possessed. It was like the difference between the brilliance of a firefly and the bright moon. It was simply incomparable. In the face of the power on a different level, they could not muster any resistance. However, feeling this terrifying power, many mutant beasts felt a sense of relief. Thankfully, Divine Tree is as mighty and awe-inspiring as before. Exchanging glances, the numerous mutant beasts, including Brewmaster and Bull Demon, revealed a trace of relief in their eyes. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 364, Divine Ability is Gift of Heavens. As he surveyed the surroundings and noticed the concerned gazes of each mutant beast, Yuziyu was moved. Different from the complexity of humans, most mutant beasts were very simple. Of course, simplicity did not mean they were stupid. It was just that their thoughts and emotions were more evident. For example, when Yuziyu treated them well, they would deeply engrave it into memory. Even Brewmaster, whose strength was unfathomable and had joined later, was the same. He might indulge himself in his own happiness all day, drinking and eating with a big grin. At the crucial moment, he would absolutely be the first to rush out at the very first sign of trouble, standing before Yuziyu among other mutant beasts. "Master, what's wrong with you?" The nearby Bull Demon, after staring at Yuziyu for a long time, finally could not contain his curiosity and asked. "It's the effect of a divine ability that allows me to change size." Giving a casual reply, Yuziyu raised his gaze, looking toward a corner. The next moment, thud thud thud. Accompanied by heavy footsteps, a golden figure entered the sight of the mutant beasts. Under the evening sunlight, its golden fur shone brilliantly. The steps were slow, stable, and powerful. However, what surprised everyone was that the usually mysterious golden monkey happened to be looking utterly shocked, as if he had witnessed something unimaginable. "Master, I really did not expect you to learn it?" Golden Monkey admitted a somewhat dry voice. Then, as if remembering something, Golden Monkey's expression became extremely strange. He remained silent for a moment before continuing, "Moreover, not only did you learn it, but you just spent a few days learning this divine ability." Voicing his astonishment, Golden Monkey looked at Yuziyu as if he were a monster. After all, in his memory, those who could learn divine ability were very few and far between. And someone like Divine Tree who could learn and adeptly use the divine ability in just a few days? Well, in the previous era, apart from the group standing at the pinnacle of myriad races, known as freaks who could overwhelm the prodigies of an era or even multiple eras, there were not many like Yuziyu. "Ha ha!" Yuziyu burst into rare laughter, not hiding his joy. Looking at Golden Monkey's expression, his speculation was confirmed. Learning the divine ability was indeed as hard as ascending the heavens. Fortunately, he had evolution points. There were some things that did not make sense, and the evolution points happened to be one of them. As for other unreasonable things, that was naturally the innate talents one was born with. Some people could learn just by glancing at something, and what could anyone do about that? Of course, Yuziyu's evolution points could also be considered as one of his innate talents. He was born with it, what else could it be if not an innate talent? However, now was not the time to boast. Looking at Golden Monkey's strange expression, Yuziyu teased, "What do you think about my control over it?" As he spoke, Yuziyu's body suddenly trembled. The next moment, in the dumbfounded gazes of the mutant beasts, Yuziyu's body grew bigger at a rapid pace. In just a few breaths he had grown to the size of a mountain. However, before they could react, Yuziyu's body shrank again, instantly shrinking to a height of just over 10 meters. Surprisingly, there was no trace of awkwardness in Yuziyu's movements amidst the repeated transformations. His execution was smooth and natural, which left everyone increasingly astonished. After a short while, nodding approvingly again and again, the mysterious Golden Monkey with an unknown past respectfully stated, Master's innate talent is really amazing. Your future is truly limitless. Praising in a heartfelt tone, Golden Monkey bowed. My future is truly limitless, huh? A light laugh escaped Yuziyu. He did not give it much thought. While evolution points have endless uses, I'm still too far away from the great Tao. Now the most important thing is to seize the present. Thinking this, Yuziyu glanced at the numerous mutant beasts and instructed, "You can leave now. In the coming days I will be training my divine ability. If it alarms any of you, you should not worry." "Yes, Master." In unison, the mutant beasts responded and withdrew. However, the next moment Yuziyu looked at Bull Demon and suddenly instructed, "Bull Demon, you stay." Saying this, Yuziyu glanced at Golden Monkey and added, "You stay too." "Yes, Master." Bull Demon and Golden Monkey looked at each other, halting in their footsteps. Shortly after the mutant beasts left, Yuziyu looked at the two nearby figures and stated with a smile, "I've learned the enlarging and shrinking at will divine ability. Although I've not reached the advanced level, I've at least reached the elementary level." Saying so, Yuziyu switched his gaze to Golden Monkey and asked, "I wonder if I can impart this divine ability to others." Hearing this, Golden Monkey was slightly shaken. Then he cast a glance at the nearby Bull Demon, seemingly having come to a realization before assenting with a nod, "Master, diving abilities are the gift of heaven, you can do as you fit." Gift of heaven? Yuziyu was a bit puzzled after hearing this. "Yes, gift of heaven?" Emphasizing once again, Golden Monkey explained, "Divine abilities can be learned with innate talent. Without the innate talent, even if someone is bestowed with thousands of divine abilities, none would be suitable." As Golden Monkey reached this point, a touch of reminiscence flickered across his face as he added, "In my memory, in the heyday of our monkey clan, we had 2 grand divine abilities and 12 minor divine abilities. However, those who could truly master divine abilities, even cultivating them to the elementary level, numbered no more than 10, and all of them were great sages of our monkey clans." A rare astonishment flashed on Yuziyu's face, realizing that he might have underestimated the terror of divine abilities. However, after some thought, Yuziyu did not dwell on it. Instead, he felt delighted. "Since divine abilities are gifts of heaven, I'll explain them to you. It won't hurt." Saying this, Yuziyu ignored the astonishment on Golden Monkey and Bull Demon's face, and directly imparted some insights into the enlarging and shrinking at will divine ability. Among mutant beasts, Bull Demon was the most compatible for this divine ability. With his original form, if he cultivated this divine ability, his combat would undoubtedly undergo a qualitative upgrade. As for Golden Monkey, as the one who granted Yuziyu the divine ability, it was only for Yuziyu to give a return gift. Thus, Yuziyu naturally asked the two beasts to remain. However, after half an hour, as he looked at the bewildered and somewhat dazed duo, Yuziyu, like a human rubbing his chin, used his branch to caress his trunk. Well, divine abilities are indeed gifts of heaven. Even when he had explained them in detail, they could not comprehend it. At this moment, Yuziyu could not help but feel fortunate for having evolution points. Without them, even with his remarkable insight, it might have taken him years to grasp the essence of this divine ability. "You can go now. If you can comprehend it, it's a great blessing. If not, it can't be helped." Hearing Yuziyu's somewhat regretful sight, Bull Demon and Golden Monkey exchanged a glance and smiled bitterly. "Thank you for your kindness, Master." After thanking him, both Bull Demon and Golden Monkey withdrew. As for Yuziyu, he remained alone on the summit of the snowy peak, contemplating the unique aspects of the enlarging and shrinking at will divine ability. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 365, The Mutant Polar Bear Clan. The enlarging and shrinking at will divine ability held extraordinary significance for Yuziyu. More precisely, such transformative divine abilities proved to be extraordinary for mutant beasts with massive bodies. Yuziyu was just one of them. Currently, Yuziyu, who had mastered the enlarging and shrinking at will divine ability, could easily dive into the earth using the River of Earth, and move freely around the island without being detected by any great beast. This was the legendary Earth Escape. However, compared to the eerie Earth Escape of the past, currently, Yuziyu was just sinking a dozen or so meter tall body of his, and then moving around using the River of Earth. "If I maintain this size, I won't be able to engage in high-intensity battles." Muttering to himself, Yuziyu became lost in thought. The enlarging and shrinking at will divine ability required a constant supply of spiritual energy. In his current state, which was just a dozen or so meters tall, his spiritual energy recovery rate could barely keep up with the consumption of spiritual energy. Notably, as a mutant plant and a terrifying Tier 3 transcendent at that, Wuxia's spiritual energy recovery rate was equally terrifying. However, now, this terrifying recovery rate could only barely keep up with the consumption of spiritual energy. It was clear how astonishing that was. In other words, if Wuxia's original form happened to be a mutant beast or even a human's, maintaining the enlarging and shrinking at will divine ability for an extended period of time would have gradually depleted his spiritual energy. Of course, that was not the most important thing. The most important aspect was that if he were to shrink his size further, the consumption of spiritual energy would increase exponentially. As for shrinking to the size of a dust particle, Wuxia did not even dare to think about it. Shrinking to such an extent would be equivalent to using the 5-color spirit flower's innate talent, instant, consuming 1,000,000 spiritual energy in just a breath. And this was one of the most frightening aspects of divine abilities. The consumption of spiritual energy was simply too terrifying, far beyond the level that Wuxia at his current realm could manage. Thinking this, Wuxia stated with some certainty, "In the future, if I shrink my size, a dozen meters will be sufficient." In the present era of transcendence, where trees could easily reach 100 meters in height, this height could not be considered tall, even bordering on short. Using this size, Wuxia could easily roam freely. With the river of earth as foundation, just like humans and mutant beasts, Wuxia would not be confined to one place. In other words, apart from the deep sea, Wuxia could step foot anywhere on this continent. This also fulfilled his past dream, pulling out his roots and running under the setting sun. Thinking about this, Wuxia could not help but feel excited. However, just at that moment, a slightly dissatisfied voice suddenly rang in Wuxia's mind. "Divine Tree, how long are you planning to maintain this size? I've no place to stay." Ah, slightly startled, Wuxia's gaze subconsciously followed the voice. The next moment, a palm-sized, incredibly beautiful 5-color spirit flower entered his sight, seemingly looking at him with a hint of resentment. However, it made sense. Originally, she was perching on Wuxia's massive and extremely spacious body. However, now she found herself cramped in between the branches, so it would be strange if she was in a good mood. Ha! With an awkward laughter, Wuxia's body started growing bigger. The next moment, boom, 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 accompanied by tremors, a towering giant tree rose from the ground. His branches blanketed the sky, resembling a large umbrella that overshadowed half of the Arctic island. His roots delved deep into the island, intertwining and weaving through the ground, forming a vast network. This was Wuxia's real body. A towering divine tree that obscured the sky. If he wanted, he could even use the enlarging and shrinking at will to grow his body bigger. However, in doing so, he might cover the entire island. Bit by bit, time passed, and in the blink of an eye, half a month had gone by. In this half-month, 9 tails had returned with a large quantity of spirit flower and herbs. At this point, if one were to look around the vicinity of Wuxia, he or she would definitely see patches of spirit flowers blooming, glittering with a radiant starlight. This was the terrifying aspect of the 5-color spirit flower. In the vicinity of her, the time taken by the spirit flower to mature would significantly shorten. And thanks to these spirit flowers, Lightning Giant Bear that had reached the threshold of Tier 1, had become a Tier 2 transcendent on one thunderous night. Surprisingly, it chose the same evolution path as Bull Demon, a human form evolution, a rare choice among mutant beasts. Now the Lightning Giant Bear, standing 4 to 5 meters tall, walked upright much like Bull Demon. Bang bang bang. Every time its feet touched the ground, they seemed to trigger small earthquakes as its weighty body wantonly trod upon the Arctic island. From a distance it looked a bit terrifying. Especially with the lightning streaking around its body, which further made it look intimidating. However, the noteworthy thing here was that the Lightning Giant Bear bore a heavy responsibility. At this moment, in a relatively open area on the Arctic island, 72 large and sturdy mutant polar bears stood neatly arranged, forming 8 rows and 9 columns. Standing in the forefront of these mutant polar bears was their chieftain and commander, the Lightning Giant Bear. As for these mutant polar bears' instructor, it was a statuesque man, Qin Gang. As a soldier, you must understand what it means to stand like a pine, sit like a bell, and move swiftly like the wind. Remember, military orders are everything. Qin Gang shouted at the top of his lungs again and again. He was no longer the carefree person he used to be. His stern and serious demeanor made the nearby thorns uncontrollably rub her eyes, seemingly unable to believe the sight before her. Qin Gang usually trains the mutant chimpanzees, and now he is also training the mutant polar bears. It's quite impressive. Indeed. Listening to Ninetales' analysis, Yu, rooted on a snowy peak in the distance, also nodded his acknowledgement at the sight of it. He quite approved of Qin Gang. Qin Gang had not disappointed his expectations. Not to mention the powerful combat tribe, the mutant chimpanzees, deep within misty mountains in the subterranean depths, just the current sight of Qin Gang earnestly training the mutant polar bear was enough to catch Yu's attention. Had he been in China, he would have undoubtedly been one of the top instructors. Yu even dared to say that he had the potential to be among the best. What? Because in just 3 days he managed to train a group of furry and bloodthirsty mutant polar bears into a disciplined and well-organized unit. From one glance, Yu could tell that the mutant polar bear in the distance was standing straight with some difficulty, but they still gritted their teeth and puffed up their chests, straightening their postures. By the looks of it, these mutant polar bears' future evolution direction should be similar to their chieftain, a human form evolution. So does this mean my territory will have a genuine polar bear tribe? Muttering to himself, Yu was filled with anticipation. If he could not trust humans, he could raise a group of humanoid mutant beasts loyal enough to replace the humans. This was an idea hidden in the back of Yu's mind. Sylvan, genuine polar bear tribe, from a game which has a tribe of humanoid polar bears wearing coats and holding weapons. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 366, plans to leave. Cultivating a mutant polar bear tribe had always been Yu's intention. After all, compared to other species, the mutant polar bears who lived in the Arctic region could be considered one of the most formidable species. Their strength surpassed that of most species, only slightly inferior to the species designated as royal clan by China. Among the royal clans designated by China, the national symbol of China, the panda, also happened to be in the list. Pandas possessed a terrifying racial innate talent that granted it the ability to gain elemental resistance and strengthen their physical body by devouring minerals. As they matured, they almost became the indestructible meat shields. Furthermore, their combat power was astonishing as well. It could be said that, among peers, pandas could almost be considered unrivaled. As such, they were known as the royal clan among the mutant beasts. Apart from the panda tribe, another well-known royal clan was the deep-sea giant whales. Giant whales, once mutated, were nearly invincible among their peers. They could traverse the seas, create tsunamis. Furthermore, their terrifying body size and control over the ocean made them deserving of the title, king. The remaining royal species were similar, either possessing invincible combat power, or having spectacular racial innate talents. For instance, the mutant golden eagles soaring above the 9 heavens were designated as one of the royal clans due to their formidable aerial dominance. Currently, the mutant polar bear were second only to the various royal clans in this hierarchical racial system. One could imagine how terrifying they were. This was also because the mutant polar bears were hidden in the depths of the Arctic, the reason why their reputation was not obvious. If China were to discover that the polar bears had undergone a qualitative overhaul after mutating, becoming even more robust and almost indestructible, their status would presumably rise significantly in China. While Yu was observing Qin Gang training the mutant polar bears, a sudden voice interrupted his thoughts. "Master, when are you planning to go out?" Yu was slightly taken aback by Ninetales' question. Then he glanced at Ninetales lying on a branch and asked with a smile, "You figured it out?" And, nodding, Ninetales earnestly replied, "Master, now that you can freely change your size and possess the River of Earth ability, you naturally won't be confined to one place." Indeed, smiling, Yu admitted. He had indeed been thinking about it lately, but he hadn't had the chance to inform the mutant beasts. However, he did not expect Ninetales to be so perceptive and actually discern his thoughts. Thinking this, Yu looked around with a calm gaze and stated, "I'll definitely go out. As humans say, the world is so big I want to see it." Saying that, Yu turned his gaze to the illusionary flower of ice crystals that had almost materialized on the canopy and continued with a sigh, "If everything goes smoothly, when I have gained the ice attribute divine ability, and create an ice elemental flower, I'll go out and explore."
I see.
Nine Tails sunk in silence. She had already understood this point. What's keeping Master here is only this. Otherwise, given Master's temperament, even if he doesn't go out, he will eventually return to Misty Mountains. After all, compared to the harsh environment here, Misty Mountains is a real paradise. Just at that moment, an ethereal voice suddenly resounded in the Nine Tails and Yuziu's mind.
I go too?
Taken aback, Yuziu looked towards the canopy where the mesmerizing five-color spirit flower was and smiled. Even if you don't want to go, I'll take you. Really? With a hint of surprise, the five-color spirit flower's voice was filled with excitement. But of course. After all, with you by my side, my cultivation speed would increase significantly, Yuziu affirmed the five-color spirit flower, nodding. There was no denying that the five-color spirit flower was extraordinary. Apart from occasionally helping Yuziu gain that terrifying innate talent, instant, the gathering spiritual energy of the five-color spirit flower alone could increase Yuziu's cultivation speed by 20%. While 20% may not be that significant, the long-term accumulation over days and months would result in a formidable figure. For instance, the ice elemental flower that Yuziu estimated would take 2 months to condense would now be condensed in a few days. If everything went smoothly, the ice elemental flower would be condensed in 3 to 4 days. The enlarging and shrinking at will divine ability held extraordinary significance for Yuziu. Of course, it was not just the five-color spirit flower helping Yuziu. He too had contributed to the growth of the five-color spirit flower. At this moment, if one looked closely at the five-color spirit flower, they would definitely notice that the radiance of her petals had become even more brilliant. At a glance, she looked more beautiful than before. And this was the reason she stuck close to Yuziu. Staying next to a terrifying Tier 3 transcendent like Yuziu, the cultivation speed of the five-color spirit flower would also be enhanced. Furthermore, she also had access to various resources supplied on a daily basis. In this case, the five-color spirit flower would not remain at the same level. In this mutually cooperative relationship, both Yuziu and the five-color spirit flower were enjoying significant benefits. As such, Yuziu was willing to take the five-color spirit flower wherever he went. Ha ha ha, the five-color spirit flower melodious laughter like twinkling of silver bells echoed. She was extremely happy. For her, being able to stay by Yuziu's side at all times was a guarantee of safety. Not to mention, with Divine Tree's fearsome strength, the number of mutant beasts daring to target her was quite limited. This alone was sufficient for the five-color spirit flower. Right at that very moment, before the five-color spirit flower could say anything in response, Nine Tails' voice, with a touch of flirtatious coquetry, suddenly echoed in the air. Master, I want to go too. My cultivation speed can only be guaranteed by staying by your side. Yuziu momentarily stunned, feeling a pang of helplessness. After a moment, noticing the anticipation in Nine Tails' pair of beautiful eyes, Yuziu helplessly nodded. All right, you can come too. Saying this, Yuziu glanced at the northern part of the island, where many mutant beasts were observing the training of the polar bear tribe by Qin Gang. He smiled and stated, this time it won't be just you. I'll select 1 or 2 mutant beasts to bring along. Since he was going, he was planning to bring a few more. With these mutant beasts, Yuziu could be more at ease as they could also handle some small troubles. Furthermore, Yuziu could take this opportunity to give them some guidance. Of course, he could not take along unique mutant beasts like Bull Demon and Sarcosuchus, as they would expose his identity. The best choice would be small size and less conspicuous creatures like Golden Ant. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 367, The White Tiger's Prowess. While Yuziu was planning to go out in the depths of the Arctic region, on a white expanse of snow field.
Roar.
A tiger roar shook the sky, even creating visible ripples in the air. Looking up, on a snowy peak, a massive white tiger 10 to 13 meters tall, roared towards the sky. Ruhar with another roar, a pair of enormous dragon-like wings spread out from either side of White Tiger. Boom! Just this slight movement had stirred a huge storm, sweeping away the snow falling in the vicinity of White Tiger. However, at this moment, White Tiger's gaze became cold and solemn. In his gaze, deep within the clouds, a formidable bird with wings spanning dozens of meters happened to be staring fixedly at the ground. A mutant Pacific Sea Eagle? Muttering, even White Tiger, now a Tier 2 Transcendent already, could not help but be on guard. The Pacific sea eagle is the largest hooked-beak raptor, that appeared like a tiger from a distance and an eagle up close. As a predatory bird, it undoubtedly was a dominant creature. In terms of offensive power, it surpassed the royal clan of birds, the golden eagle. Especially its hooked beak, which could pierce through most defenses. Right now, this fearsome bird, emanating a formidable aura of a Tier 2 transcendent, had run into White Tiger. Squawk. A deep and hoarse scream resounded through the sky. However, before the scream could even fade away, roar, a tiger roar several times louder shook the sky. What was even more terrifying was that White Tiger propped himself on his pair of hind legs and spread his dragon-like wings, flapping them hard. Boom, creating a fearsome storm. White Tiger shot straight towards the clouds, like an arrow fired from a bow. On a narrow path, only the courageous one emerges victorious. Since they had run into each other, not engaging in a battle would be regretful. More importantly, while White Tiger appeared foolish and simple, he was the least tolerant to provocation. Roar, 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 tiger roars echoed through the sky as White Tiger soared towards the dumbfounded Pacific sea eagle. The Pacific sea eagle was really dumbfounded. Not just because White Tiger could fly but also because a recently breakthrough Tier 2 transcendent dared to attack the overlord of the sky. The Pacific sea eagle might have been dumbfounded, but its reaction held no hesitation. It swiped its huge talons towards the oncoming White Tiger. With a sound akin to metals rubbing against each other, countless sparks flew in the air as White Tiger and Pacific sea eagle clashed with each other, before pushing back each other at the same time. But in a moment before ordinary people could react, these two terrifying creatures attacked each other once again. Bang, 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 one after another, collisions powerful and resounding, echoed amidst the flying snowflakes. White Tiger and Pacific sea eagle, like two arrows released from their strings, continuously intertwined high in the sky. In an instant they retreated once again. Clash, retreat, clash, retreat. Two mutant beasts, far beyond the understanding of ordinary people, began a chase between life and death. However, just at this moment, as if discovering something, White Tiger's pupils suddenly contracted. In his sidelong gaze he caught a glimmer. Impressively, the big beak of the Pacific sea eagle was shining. At the same time, White Tiger suddenly felt a faint sense of crisis. Interesting. Instead of retreating, White Tiger's fighting spirit skyrocketed. However, if one paid careful attention to him, they would notice that White Tiger's throat happened to have started vibrating at some point. The next moment, bang. In another clash of tiger claws and talons, their powerful clash created a shockwave, dispersing the falling snow in the air. Right at that very moment, a fierce gleam glimmered in the depths of the Pacific sea eagle's eyes. Squawk, with a hoarse and resonant scream, the Pacific sea eagle dove down as its sharp beak started emanating a faint glow. Though dim, this glow made the entire beak several times dangerous. Without a doubt, if this huge beak struck White Tiger, it would instantly tear through his defense, leaving a deep blood hole. However, just as the Pacific sea eagle dove, a grin flashed on White Tiger's lips. The next moment, roar, a tiger's roar 10 times louder and more dreadful than the one at the beginning, resonated through the sky. Looking up, sound waves, visible to the naked eye, transformed into tornado-like ripples that undulated fiercely towards the Pacific sea eagle. It was too late to react, or rather, even if it was prepared, it would have been of no use. In the face of this sonic attack, the Pacific sea eagle's entire body trembled. Squawk! The Pacific sea eagle let out a painful scream as its beautiful feathers took on a bloody hue. However, this was only the beginning. Against White Tiger, a terrifying creature whose combat sense even Wuxia praised, the Pacific sea eagle had truly fallen into a crisis. Wind howled as a faint halo emerged around White Tiger's dragon-like wings as he flapped his wings. The next moment, with a swoosh, the dragon-like wings cut through the air, slashing towards the Pacific sea eagle's wings like a blade. Simultaneously, White Tiger's tail, resembling a steel whip, had also fiercely stabbed towards the Pacific sea eagle's heart from a tricky angle. Squawk! The Pacific sea eagle let out a furious cry, somewhat dumbfounded. It could not understand how it suddenly fell into such a crisis when they were evenly matched just a moment ago. Be that as it may, now was clearly not the time to mull over this. The Pacific sea eagle narrowed its eyes as a fierce gleam flashed within them, then it flapped its wings. The next moment, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Like a storm, the Pacific sea eagle's countless feathers transformed into thousands of sharp blades, shooting continuously on White Tiger who had arrived before it. Moreover, leveraging this attack, it instantly retreated backward. However, just at this moment, divine prestige. A thunderous roar, akin to a clap of thunder, reverberated through the sky. Immediately afterward, much to the horror of the Pacific Sea Eagle, the air suddenly became heavier and denser. Even more suffocating was the black halo that spread from White Tiger, instantly enveloping it. What is this? Before the Pacific Sea Eagle could express its surprise, it felt its heart tighten, and its whole body seemingly sank into a quagmire, making it difficult to move. Tiger's fiendish prestige. All enemies killed by the White Tiger transform into specters that attach themselves to it. Combined with the inherent ferocity of the White Tiger, a domain-like presence is created, exerting overwhelming pressure on enemies. This influence extends beyond their bodies, affecting their minds as well. Taking advantage of the Pacific Sea Eagle's momentary distraction, White Tiger bravely withstood the onslaught of feathers, and pounced fiercely towards it. His dragon-like wings slashed the Pacific Sea Eagle's body, while his steel whip-like tail landed on its chest. Go to hell. With a shout, the blood-soaked White Tiger controlled its tail to exert force again, penetrating the flesh of the Pacific Sea Eagle. In an instant, before the Pacific Sea Eagle could react, a loud boom erupted as the spiritual energy entwined around White Tiger's tail suddenly exploded, creating a massive storm that completely enveloped the Pacific Sea Eagle. After some unknown time, a figure slowly descended from the sky, silently staring at the blood feathers falling around with a cold and fierce gaze. However, if one paid attention at this moment, he or she would undoubtedly see a phantom with blood-red eyes, filled with murderous intent, emitting the most piercing wail in the air. But the phantom did not wail for too long and unwillingly reduced into a wisp of gloomy light that shot straight towards White Tiger. The next moment, roar! White Tiger let out a terrifying roar as his prestige soared at an alarming pace. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 368, Ice Attribute Divine Ability, Ice Age. The tiger's fiendish prestige was a terrifying ability developed by White Tiger by using his own fierce aura. It possessed a terrifying potential to grow stronger and stronger the more he fought. Because of this ability, White Tiger was even confident that in the future he could stand on par with his second brother, Bull Demon, as well as his elder sister, Nine Tails, and ninth brother, Brewmaster. Roar! White Tiger let out a roar, suppressing the ferocity in his heart. He truly felt a sense of relief. The soul of a Tier 2 Pacific Sea Eagle alone was enough to enhance his ability, Tiger's fiendish prestige, by 20 to 30%. If it was executed during fights with such significant improvements, even stronger mutant beasts with spiritual energy 10,000 or even 200,000 higher than White Tiger would find it difficult to breathe and their bodies heavier as if stuck in a swamp. This is just in a one-on-one situation. If I use it on the battlefield, my current aura should be enough to terrify some Tier 0 little beast to death. A grin appeared on White Tiger's lips, feeling excited. The current him was an out-and-out Tier 2 transcendent. He had not disappointed Divine Tree's expectations. Furthermore, his ceaseless slaughter had brought a qualitative change in his tiger's fiendish prestige. In light of this, he started making his way back to the Arctic island with his head held high. When I've killed 9 Tier 2 transcendents and over 100 Tier 1 transcendents, when my tiger's fiendish prestige would have been raised to its utmost limit, even elder sister and ninth brother won't be able to match me in a fight. White Tiger's voice carried some anticipation, but also a tinge of uneasiness. As far as White Tiger was concerned, the tiger's fiendish prestige was a double-edged sword. If used well, it would undoubtedly bring many benefits. However, if he failed to rein in his fiendish aura, it would bring considerable trouble to White Tiger. He might even lose his mind because of this ability. As all these thoughts crossed his mind, what Divine Tree said once flashed in his mind: the timid die of starvation and the bold die of ingestion. In this world of transcendence, if one wanted to thrive, taking risks was inevitable. And now, White Tiger was taking that risk, that it could subdue countless souls and turn them into a part of his domain. Roar! Giving out a roar, resolute and powerful, White Tiger lifted his feet, heading towards the corpse that had fallen from the sky not far away. Now it's time for my meal. But it's also time for me to head back. Meanwhile, in the heart of an Arctic island stood a towering giant tree, covered in numerous ice crystals, sparkling brilliantly in the sunlight. 8 million spiritual energy, Yuziyu murmured to himself as a shiver passed down his entire body. Faintly, one could even hear a crackling sound as if something had broken. However, it was no surprise. After several months of immersion in cultivation, Yuziyu's spiritual energy had reached 8 million. Such terrifying spiritual energy, if erupted, not to mention a small city, even the toughest cities in China would crumble in seconds. And this was just a pure surge of spiritual energy, it did not involve use of any ability or divine ability. Unknowingly, I've grown to this point. Sighing, a complex surge of emotions filled his heart. Perhaps it was excitement, or perhaps it was joy, or maybe it was something as complex as an epiphany, dreaming thousands of years in a second. Only now was really not the time to reflect on these matters. Glancing at his canopy, where the ice crystal flower had 80 to 90% materialized, Yuziyu mustered his breath for one last time. Condense. Accompanying his shout, countless rootlets entwined around the ice attribute spirit stone mine deep beneath the island exerted force. Gulp, gulp, with alternate contraction and expansion, streams of ice attribute spiritual energy visible to the naked eye flowed into Yuziyu's roots. At the same time at Yuziyu's canopy, surges of ice blue brilliance flowed over from all directions through the branches, ultimately converging at the deep blue flower adorned with frost. A deafening ring reverberated in Yuziyu's mind. Even though he had already condensed 2 elemental flowers, Yuziyu still felt his mind shaken. Immediately after, countless profound pieces of information emerged in Yuziyu's mind out of nowhere. Minor divine ability, Ice Age. Using this ability, one could instantly freeze the earth, oceans, and even the air, turning a region into a glacier, reenacting the most primitive and terrifying Ice Age. Silently contemplating the information in his mind, Yuziyu's corners of lips could not help but rise into a smile. As a companion divine ability that could only be born when an elemental flower is condensed, this ice attribute minor divine ability was nothing short of terrifying. After all, the Ice Age was not really as simple as 2 words, depicting a world of ice. In an foregone era of the distant past, the Ice Age even meant racial extinction. Yet now Yuziyu could, with his own strength, bring an area back to the Ice Age. It was easy to imagine what this signified. Compared to the impregnable defense brought by the Earth attribute divine ability, crystallization, or the almost world-ending fury brought by the Fire attribute minor divine ability, feather firestorm, this Ice attribute minor divine ability could truly control the field. Different divine abilities don't bring the same repeated things to the table, but a kind of perfect mutual cooperation. Yuziyu smiled, feeling quite fortunate. If this Ice attribute divine ability focused solely on offense, it would not have been ideal. Like now, the perfect control of the scene was what Yuziyu was looking forward to the most. It could freeze everything, the ground and the sky. When cultivated to perfection, it might even freeze time. With such terrifying control-type divine ability, coupled with his fearsome offense, Yuziyu could completely annihilate opponents of the same level in the blink of an eye. This was the terrifying aspect of control. Though, whether it was an ordinary ability or divine ability, too much was as bad as too little, since even with evolution points, it was highly unlikely that Yuziyu could upgrade every ability or divine ability. What he could do was select the most suitable ones from his long list of abilities and divine abilities. And now, this Ice attribute minor divine ability happened to fill the shortcomings of Yuziyu's control. Therefore, it was no wonder that Yuziyu was pleasantly surprised. Furthermore, this was only a part of the harvest. Lifting his gaze, Yuziyu saw an ice crystal flower swaying along the wind and snow. Different from ordinary spirit flowers, this ice spirit flower seemed to carry the utmost coldness. Even Yuziyu felt a chill in his heart, as if even his soul was freezing when he first laid eyes on it. An ice attribute elemental flower, muttering to himself, Yuziyu could not help but reveal a hint of anticipation. This flower was tantamount to an ice elemental life form, another powerful character under him. Evolution begins with a big tree. Chapter 369, White Snake evolves into a flood dragon. Every elemental flower was capable of creating an elemental life form. Every elemental life form, relying on its innate talent, had the potential to reach the peak of Tier 2. Just like Qin Gang with his current strength, even if he was not strong enough to overwhelm all Tier 2 transcendents, ordinary Tier 2 transcendents would not be able to do anything against him. Even Nine Tails and Brewmaster would find Qin Gang a formidable opponent. As higher life forms, an elemental life form could not be taken lightly, especially when it came to elementalization, which made them eerie and mysterious. Exhaling deeply, Yuziyu looked at the ice elemental flower on the canopy, narrowing his eyes slightly. However, just a moment later, as if remembering something, Yuziyu's gaze shifted towards the depths of the ground. There, a long crystalline snake, as if cast from ice, lay coiled beside the ice attribute spirit stone mine. This colossal crystalline snake was none other than White Snake, who happened to have already reached Tier 2. Because of White Snake's remarkable ice attribute innate talent, she had awakened a very special ability. Now, her current spiritual energy has crossed the 500,000 mark. Her deep reserves of spiritual energy were no less than those of Brewmaster and Nine Tails. The reason for this was White Snake, incredible ability, hibernation. Unique ability, hibernation. Snakes hibernate in winter and live in their burrows. In extremely cold conditions, White Snake can sink deep into her consciousness and hibernate. And during her slumber she'll merge with the world and absorb spiritual energy at a rate several times or even over a dozen times the normal rate, and her own consumption would be reduced to the minimum. This was an extremely unique ability. Its uniqueness lay in the severe limitations. One was an extremely cold environment, and the other was a safe environment. An extremely cold environment was still possible as White Snake would not have any trouble finding one thanks to her innate talent. As for a safe environment, on the other hand, it was extremely challenging to find for mutant beasts in the wild. This was where Yuziyu's protection came into play. Any other mutant beasts, even if they had similar abilities, would not dare to use them. After all, during hibernation, a mutant beast was in an extremely vulnerable state. Even a mutant beast far weaker than White Snake could still inflict severe damage to her. But with Yuziyu on the Arctic island, his unfathomable strength was enough to deter all small fry. White Snake had absolute trust in Yuziyu, that was why she willingly chose to enter hibernation and engage in deep cultivation. At this moment, if one were to look towards the depths of the earth, they would surely see a long, slender snake, over 10 meters long, shrouded in a hazy mist. The ice attribute spirit stones around her rapidly melted, continuously turning into a veil of cold mist around her. White Snake, as the guardian spirit beast of Misty Mountains, if she, mumbling, Yuziyu began calculating in his mind. The elemental flower, particularly the ice elemental flower, is best suited for White Snake. First and foremost is the elemental affinity. As an ice attribute mutant beast, White Snake can undoubtedly be called the darling of the elements. The second reason is White Snake's exceptional intellect. She could undoubtedly bring out the full potential of the ice element. Thinking this, Yuziyu's gaze towards the depths of the earth became a bit fiery. At present, there really was no other creature more suitable for this elemental flower than White Snake. Even if there was, Yuziyu could not guarantee their loyalty. Since that's the case then, as he spoke, Yuziyu's branch easily plucked the ice crystal flower and rushed straight towards the depths of the earth. Boom, 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 as the ground started quaking, White Snake's body in the distance also trembled slightly as if sensing them. However, before she could do anything, a warm and gentle voice rang in her mind, "Don't worry, it's me." Just as these words rang in her ears, White Snake's body shivered. Immediately after, before she could react, she felt an extremely coldness rushing towards her. "What's this?" White Snake's voice was filled with disbelief, and also happened to be shaking a bit. The next moment, a deafening sound erupted as a terrifying chill burst forth, sweeping over everything like a flood. Even more terrifying was that, despite White Snake's control over the ice element, she began to continuously freeze, until she froze into a mountain of ice. This is an elemental flower. If you can seize this opportunity, not only will your strength greatly increase, but you will also transform into an elemental life form, a higher life form. With a touch of concern, Yuziyu's voice resounded in White Snake's mind. Elemental flower? Slightly stunned, the still somewhat groggy White Snake finally let go of her guard. As a mutant beast that had followed Yuziyu for a long time, she naturally understood what an elemental flower was. Not only was it a treasure exclusive to the divine tree, but it was also an invaluable treasure capable of stirring a bloodbath. However, what surprised White Snake was that Yuziyu would actually give her such a treasure. White Snake had no time to think too much. Or rather, time did not allow for much thought. Extremely cold spiritual energy like a flood, completely enveloped White Snake. The extreme coldness seemed to freeze everything, not just her body but also her soul. In the depths of her consciousness, White Snake felt as if her body was undergoing an indescribable transformation, little by little. And at this moment, if one were to look at White Snake, he or she would witness some small bones growing from the frozen White Snake's abdomen. Her ice-blue scales, resembling fish scales, sparkled with an indescribable luster. Evolving into a flood dragon, huh? A soft whisper escaped Yu's lips as he gazed towards White Snake in astonishment. Snakes evolving into flood dragons and flood dragons evolving into dragons was not just a legend. According to Golden Monkey, in the previous era, there existed a species known as dragons. Flood dragon, a subspecies of dragons also known as the hornless dragon, was a terrifying species with the bloodline of dragons. Ha! Yu exhaled a long, deep breath as his gaze flickered with astonishment and complex emotions. At his level, he naturally understood that in the future he was destined to come into contact with some legendary species. However, Yu had never thought that he would come into contact with them so quickly, and that he would be responsible for their birth. However, it might be for the best. Yu was also more adaptable and receptive to such an encounter than a sudden run-in later on. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 370, The Birth of White Flood Dragon. In the pitch-black night, the biting north wind made the entire Arctic island fall into a deathly silence. However, just at that moment, screech, a long dragon-like roar echoed across the sky, disturbing the entire island. Yeep! With a low scream, Nine Tails slowly lifted her body, a rare seriousness flashing in her brilliant fiery eyes. This aura? With a puzzled expression, Nine Tails looked towards the depths of the earth, her eyes constantly flickering. For some reason she actually sensed a hint of threat from this faint aura. This kind of threat was something she had only felt from Brewmaster. On another side, the drunken Brewmaster also jolted suddenly. Swoosh, swoosh, fiercely shaking his head, Brewmaster instantly channeled his spiritual energy, detoxifying himself and regaining sobriety. Then he cast a deep glance in the direction of the roar, squinting his eyes. White Snake's strength has reached an unreasonable level. Heaving a long, deep sigh, Brewmaster grabbed the wine gourd from his waist and took a small sip. He was not too concerned about this. In his opinion, with Divine Tree present, everything was possible. It was not worth worrying too much. Instead of caring about these things, it was better to enjoy the wine. Of course, his drinking was also helpful in cultivation. Even in front of the Divine Tree, he had a justifiable reason. At this moment, not only the two top powerhouses of Misty Mountains, but also other creatures had, more or less, sensed something. Let's go and take a look. Smiling, Qing Gang merged into the ground, hurrying towards the familiar aura. This cold aura is extremely terrifying. Lightning Giant Bear, who was not very familiar with the members of Misty Mountains, had his pupils fiercely contract, shocked by the terrifying power of Misty Mountains. Misty Mountains is really too much, such horrifying entities keep emerging every now and then. While there is no shortage of mutant beasts in the wilderness, they are mostly scattered and can be dealt with one by one. Compared to Misty Mountains, it's a completely different story altogether. So many powerful creatures gathered in one place. It is no wonder that other creatures regarded Misty Mountains as the most unfathomable force on the continent. Rumor has it, in the southern part of this continent, there is a mountain range known as Misty Mountains, where as many as a dozen fearsome mutant beasts dwell. Whether it's grassroots combatants or top-level combatants, there is no shortage of them. More importantly, they are also guarded by an unfathomable divine tree. I have to admit, coming to Misty Mountains was the right choice. Thinking this, the Lightning Giant Bear, who usually seemed a bit simple, also revealed a hint of brilliance in the depths of his eyes. Meanwhile, deep within the polar island. Roar! Another long roar reverberated through the air, as if celebrating her rebirth, as a long and slender body dozens of meters long began to stretch out. Then, visible to the naked eye, spider web-like cracks appeared on the ice mountain that had frozen White Snake. More astonishingly, if one were to lay eyes on White Snake within the ice mountain at this moment, they would surely be amazed by her beauty. She was just too beautiful. Tiny and delicate scales, resembling those of a fish, covered her body layer upon layer, sparkling with a mesmerizing brilliance inside the ice mountain. On her back there was a strange organ that resembled a spine. It radiated a dark blue radiance as if cast from the deepest and coldest ice, giving off a chilling coldness. Just a mere glance would give the illusion that even their soul was freezing. At this moment, if one looked further up along the blue spine, he or she would discover a beautiful blue halo, radiated by sharp things on White Snake's head. These were not dragon horns, but they were much more beautiful than dragon horns. They seemed like a coronet, emphasizing White Snake's nobility and extraordinariness. However, right at this moment, Yuziyu suddenly narrowed his eyes, looking at White Snake's head. He astonishingly discovered that her eyes seemed to slightly tremble, as if they were about to open. Except, looking at these trembling eyes, Yuziyu could not help but curl up his lips into a smile. Those were not the eyes of a snake, those were the eyes of a dragon. Dragon eyes, nothing less. Vertical pupils with a faint blue outline. In their majesty, there was a hint of intelligence and playfulness. Seemingly curious, these vertical pupils could not help but move around, examining its body. However, as she looked at the slightly bulging bumps on her abdomen, White Snake furrowed her brow slightly. After a moment, she subconsciously controlled her scales to cover these bumps. That pair of bulges greatly affected her overall beauty. As it so happens to be, White Snake cared a lot about her appearances. However, according to the information that had mysteriously appeared in her mind, these slight bumps were her dragon claws. When she had stepped into the Tier 3, joining the ranks of catastrophe, this pair of dragon claws would truly mature and would emerge, tearing through her flesh. By then she would be a true dragon subspecies, a flood dragon. In this era where the true dragon clan from the ancient myths had not yet emerged, she possessed the most noble bloodline among mutant beasts. White Snake. Hearing the gentle call, White Snake's expression slightly trembled. Immediately after, a hint of pleasant surprise flashed deep within her eyes. Before Yuziyu could say anything more, her body suddenly shook. Crack, crack. With successive cracking sounds, the ice mountain, tens of meters tall, suddenly exploded into pieces. Amidst the shattered pieces, a long and slender figure transformed into a streak of light, shooting straight towards Yuziyu's root. Master! Calling out with great excitement, White Snake actually slithered her way up Yuziyu's roots, spiraling around it.
1 meter. 5 meters.
In just a short while she had risen to several hundred meters around the roots of Yuziyu. And mere moments later, with a tremendous boom, the ground split apart as a dazzling white glow illuminated half the night sky.
What's this? A dragon? Are you kidding me?
Cries of astonishment echoed in the air as Qin Gang, Thorns and others, who had already arrived near Yuziyu, stood gawking at the long body entwined several times around Yuziyu's thick trunk. The long slender body was as white as snow and had a blue dragon spine on its back. Its head even bore quite a bit of resemblance with a dragon's head. However, compared to the fierce appearance of dragons in legends, this head was exquisite, emanating a delicate and charming aura. Even if they did not belong to the same race, just by looking at the head, the other mutant beasts could feel that this seemed to be a beauty, and not an ordinary one at that. This was another beautiful creature that had transcended racial perception. Another was 9 tails. Author note: White Snake is to a certain extent inspired by the character Little White from the movie White Snake. The origin. Evolution begins with a big tree. Chapter 371, Elemental Flood Dragon. Staring in awe, the mutant beasts marveled at the beauty of the current White Snake. However, the attentive ones noticed a faint cold mist surging under White Snake's body, as if she was riding on clouds and mist. This faint white cold mist happened to be holding White Snake in the air, setting off her extraordinariness. Minor divine ability, riding clouds and mist, an incredible divine ability that only the most talented and brilliant of flood dragons can master. It allows them to fly in the sky using clouds and mist, granting them lightning-fast speed. It's truly an extraordinary divine ability. White Snake's innate talent is truly amazing. Golden Monkey expressed his deep admiration, emerging from behind a giant rock and gazing at the mist beneath White Snake in astonishment. Thanks to his past memories, he naturally understood that this was the renowned minor divine ability, riding clouds and mist. This minor divine ability happened to be the Dragon Clan's exclusive ability. Almost every dragon, as long as their talent was not lacking, could master this ability. This minor divine ability was as natural as breathing to the dragons. Naturally, flood dragons, possessing dragon's blood, also had a certain possibility of mastering this divine ability. However, only the most exceptional of flood dragons could master it. In other words, White Snake's innate talent was far from ordinary.
Meanwhile,
Master, master? Amidst excited and joyful calls, White Snake affectionately coiled around Yuziu's trunk, her head intimately brushing against the trunk from time to time. For White Snake, this was the best possible way she could express her gratitude. You little girl? Smiling, Yuziu's branches gently stroked White Snake's scales. Her scales were extremely cold, but also quite comfortable. Nevertheless, there was no denying that these were dragon scales. After all, the patterns on these scales were not only beautiful but also intricate, something ordinary scales could not have. Just at this moment, as if thinking of something, Yuziu narrowed his eyes slightly. After a moment, a series of information flowed into Yuziu's mind. Race, Elemental Flood Dragon. Rank, Tier 2 Transcendent. Innate talents. Mastery of Ice Element. As an ice elemental life form, White Snake has absolute control over the ice element. With just a breath, she could unleash a wave of cold, and with a shake of her body she could freeze everything around her. Breath Attack. As a flood dragon, White Snake has awakened the exclusive innate talent of the dragon clan, Breath Attack. She can breathe a 10,000-foot-long white beam mixed with a cold current that has the power to freeze everything in its path. When this white beam descends, its might can be described as apocalyptic. Not only would a city be affected, but even its surrounding areas would be devastated by the resulting shockwave, and the cold wave would freeze anything and everything. Unique abilities. Control over cold currents. White Snake has a certain degree of control over the cold currents, and she can manipulate the direction the coldness spreads. Elementalization. A unique ability exclusive to elemental life forms, which allows her physical body to take elemental form, merging with the elements. Ice Armor. By gathering a large amount of ice element on the scales, White Snake can significantly increase her defense. Furthermore, anyone who came in contact with her body would have their bodies invaded by cold. Flood Dragon Body. White Snake's body is far more powerful than her peers, which gives her terrifying strength and speed. Absolute Zero. Her surging spiritual energy can freeze everything, not just the body but even the soul will feel cold. Minor Divine Ability. Riding Clouds and Mist, an incredible divine ability that only the most talented and brilliant of flood dragons can master. It allows them to fly in the sky using clouds and mist, granting them lightning-fast speed. It's truly an extraordinary divine ability. Yuziu cast a deep glance at White Snake, no, to be more precise, White Flood Dragon, amazed by her strength. She not only possessed two extremely formidable innate talents but also had countless unique abilities that even Yuziu envied, not to mention the minor divine ability that fascinated Yuziu. In terms of combat power alone, this girl should be on the same level as Ninetales and Brewmaster. Marveling, Yuziu could not help but admit the terrifying potential of elemental life form and flood dragon. As a unique product of combination of an elemental life form and a flood dragon, White Flood Dragon had magnified this potential by several times. Yuziu was being polite by putting her on the same level as Ninetales and Brewmaster. If they were in this kind of cold environment filled with ice and snow, White Flood Dragon's combat power might be amplified several times over. After all, the geographical advantage for elemental life forms was not to be taken lightly. Even a fire elemental life form like Aisha would experience a substantial increase in strength in a desert. In this frigid cold environment, as the absolute master of the ice element, White Snake's combat power was hard to imagine. Furthermore, this was going to be in combination with the fearsome body of a flood dragon. She is truly a monster. Marveling once again, the corner of Yuziu subconsciously rose into a smile. As far as he was concerned, the more terrifying her innate talent was, the better. After all, their enemy was not just China. Seemingly thinking of something, Yuziu lifted his gaze. The desert in the south, the depths of the North Pole, Tian Shan Mountains. All these terrifying areas have a notoriety no less than that of Misty Mountain, and all have formidable enemies. Not to mention the sea, there is Australia as well, the Living Fossil Museum. Just at this moment, as if sensing Yuziu's abnormality, a voice suddenly rang in Yuziu's ears. Master, what's wrong? Slightly taken aback, Yuziu also snapped out of his thoughts, glanced at her, who was in front of him, and stated with a smile, I'm just marveling at your innate talent. Good, very good, you've exceeded my expectations. That's because Master raised me well. Shaking her head, she affectionately approached again. Whether it was an illusion or not, Yuziu smelled a faint fragrance. It was indescribable and mysterious, but pleasant too, like that of a woman's fragrance. Shaking his head, Yuziu dispelled the ripples in his heart, and turned his gaze towards the mutant beasts rushing over. Looking at their faces filled with surprise and curiosity, Yuziyu did not conceal anything and straightforwardly explained, "I bestowed the ice elemental flower to Little White, which surprisingly awakened the flood dragon bloodline within her, becoming her lucky break." Flood dragon? Crying in surprise, Qin Gang looked towards the long and slender creature that resembled a dragon. Astonishment was clearly visible in his eyes. As far as Qin Gang and Thorns were concerned, dragons held a special significance in their hearts. After all, China had taken the dragon as their totem. When it came to dragons, the mythical creatures that existed only in legends, curiosity and research had never ceased. Now, a dragon powerful enough to shake the entire China had appeared before Qin Gang and Thorns. It was easy to imagine the shock they were feeling. However, after a moment, as if realizing something, Qin Gang grinned and exclaimed, "Even a flood dragon has emerged. It seems that the legendary dragons are not far off. Perhaps, Little White will be the first one to evolve into a dragon?" Thorns could not help but purse her lips into a smile. That might be the case. Qin Gang nodded, also agreeing with her opinion. Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 372 Dragon? Wyvern. In the distance, Yuziyu, listening to the discussion between Thorns and Qin Gang, could not help but smile and give his own opinion. That's a given with Little White's talent. If she still can't be the first to evolve into a dragon, that would be strange. Seemingly a bit embarrassed, Little White called out shyly. Alright, I won't say more." Yuziyu stopped teasing. Shortly after that, Yuziyu looked towards the other mutant beasts and ordered, "It's getting late. Everyone disperse." Saying so, Yuziyu seemed to have remembered something and further added, "Gather here tomorrow early morning, I have some instructions for you." "Yes, master," as everyone respectfully responded in unison, a look of anticipation flashed on their faces. They reckoned that it was time to return to Misty Mountains. After all, Yuziyu had already condensed the elemental flower, and his strength had become even more unfathomable. So, they believed that there was no longer a reason to stay here. While Little White had evolved into a flood dragon, on the face and boundless continent of Australia. Since the advent of the era of transcendence, Australia had become a paradise for mutant beasts, and tonight, this dreadful continent, also known as the Museum of Living Fossils, experienced a terrifying event. Perhaps it was a coincidence, perhaps it was accidental. But on this night, Ruhar, a terrifying dragon-like roar reverberated across the sky and the ground. Looking up, a dark creature with dragon wings, bathing in lightning resembling a lizard, disappeared into the depths of the clouds. At the same time, a terrifying aura that made countless creatures shudder spread in all directions. Dragon, it's a dragon. Is this a joke? How could such a creature exist? What kind of joke is this? I actually witnessed the birth of a Tier 3 transcendent creature, and saw an atavistic dark lizard evolve into a giant dragon. Amidst voices filled with disbelief, the faces of a human squad turned pale, and large beads of sweat dripped down their foreheads. While not many humans were left in Australia, there were still hundreds of thousands alive. Among these hundreds of thousands, the members of this squad could be ranked among the strongest, and their leader also happened to be a well-known Tier 2 superhuman. However, at this moment, such a powerful squad was terrified out of their wits. It was easy to imagine the shock in their hearts. However, at this moment, seemingly sensing something. Ruhar, a dragon roar, carrying a hint of playfulness, reverberated through the sky as a section of dragon wing with intricate patterns peeked out from the depths of the dark clouds. Ruhar, another dragon roar echoed as flashes of lightning illuminated the pitch-black night sky. At the same time, a pitch-black beam as thick as a bucket, entwined with black lightning, fell from the depths of the clouds. No! Noticing it, the captain of the squad's shrill cries of despair filled the air. But the next moment, as if realizing their doom, he promptly used the instruments in his hand and chose to upload tonight's footage. Even in death, he decided to fulfill their mission. They were deployed by the military to investigate because the military had detected abnormalities in this area, and they had not received any communication from this region for over half a month. However, they never expected to witness such a horrifying and terrifying scene. Just as he finished uploading tonight's footage to the military headquarters, a deafening clap reverberated, shaking the sky and the earth. Immediately after, several mountains in the vicinity were completely obliterated by the resulting black shockwave. The gales it set off were like a Category 12 hurricane, crashing in all directions. However, that was not the most terrifying part. What was truly frightening was that even from a distance, one could still see a mushroom-shaped colossal shockwave rising. This horrific sight resembled a scene straight out of Doomsday, silencing humans and countless mutant beasts alike. At this moment, all humans and mutant beasts realized that this continent had gained a new master. Without a powerful nation, the humans were not enough to resist such a horrifying creature. Shortly afterward, who knows how they got the information, but America, China, Russia, the alliance of Southeast Asian nations, and all the major human superpowers got their hands on it, and when they laid eyes on this piece of information, everyone sank into silence. At this moment, the high-ranking officials were all staring at the nearby screen, looking at the few blurry images. Although they were blurry, everyone could still clearly make out a lizard with enormous wings. It's a dragon, and a black dragon at that. It's the typical representative of the evil dragon in Western legends. An expert deeply versed in folklore stepped forward and stated in disbelief, finding it a bit hard to digest. After a moment, his eyes suddenly narrowed as if noticing something. He immediately ran towards the screen and examined it closely. Then he stated confidently, "Fortunately, this shouldn't be the purest bloodline dragon. Judging by its current appearance, it should be a wyvern, a terrifying species with a trace of dragon bloodline. Still, even if just a trace, this wyvern's bloodline concentration may be very high, very, very high." Listening to the expert's analysis, many high-ranking American officials could not help but be surprised. After a moment, a hoarse voice asked, "What difference is there? Now that such a terrifying species has evolved, what's the difference between a wyvern and a dragon?" A bitter smile appeared on the blond old man's face, appearing helpless. However, at this moment the expert responded with a serious expression, "There is a significant difference. According to our research on mythological legends, the weakest dragons should start from Tier 4. Furthermore, they would be immune to certain elements, and their physical bodies are extremely terrifying. Such beings are absolutely beyond our current ability to resist. Wyverns, on the other hand, are different. Even powerful wyvern cannot possess the terrifying elemental immunity of dragons, not to mention others. Long story short, we should be able to resist them, and we might even have a chance at slaying a dragon." While the expert was calmly explaining, his voice carried a deep passion and excitement, so much so that many high-ranking officials could not help but be stunned. However, in a moment, as if realizing something, nearly half of the high-ranking American officials suddenly jolted. "Slay the dragon, slay the dragon. Slay it while it has just broken through. If we can successfully slay the dragon with its corpse, our research on evolution can definitely make further progress." Accompanied by the sudden uproar, the gloom in the entire office was swept away, replaced by an indescribable greed and eagerness. And this was not just America. Things were proceeding in a similar way in the alliance of Southeast Asian nations, China, and other major superpowers. Humans were complex, but they were also most susceptible to temptation. Moreover, this is a wyvern that had just broken through. Even if it was powerful, without time to polish its new strength, what it could display was still limited. When this thought crossed their minds, how could the humans restrain the excitement in their hearts? Evolution begins with a big tree, Chapter 373, The Assassin Squad. In the morning, a haze of mist lingered in the air. There was nothing but a white expanse in sight, all clad in silver. Even the frozen sea from a distance resembled a mirror reflecting the vastness of the sky. This was an aftereffect of the unintentional leakage of cold energy when Little White evolved into an elemental life form last night. Everything within 1,000 kilometers was frozen, and snow was falling within 10,000 kilometers. It looked like a snow plain in the Arctic, calm and serene. However, at this moment, in the center of an Arctic island, mutant beasts stood in neat and orderly files near a towering tree. At the forefront were the 9 great beasts. Apart from Old 4th, Sarcosuchus, Old 7th, Titan and Old 8th, Tundra, the rest were all present. As for White Tiger, he had returned in the early morning, covered in blood all over, emitting a strong scent of blood. Presumably, he should have fought a fierce battle. The 6 of the 9 great beasts stood side by side, less than 10 meters apart. Standing behind them were 3 generals. No, more accurately, for generals. Lightning Giant Bear could also be counted as one of the generals, strong enough to establish his own territory in Misty Mountains. Apart from 6 great beasts, for generals Qing Gang and Little White stood quietly on either side. As elemental life forms, they were no less in status or strength to the 9 great beasts. However, they each had their own responsibilities. Qing Gang, as an instructor, trained mutant beasts in Misty Mountains, while Little White was the guardian spirit beast of Misty Mountains, guarding a specific area. When they returned to Misty Mountains this time, Little White would probably return to the ice caverns, entering a long period of seclusion, until the day Yuziyu called for her again. Screech, screech, bird cries echoed in the sky as several fist-sized peregrine falcons circled above. Not far from them were 4 massive inferno birds dragging long trails of flames. But that was not all. At this moment, if one were to look towards the icy sea, they would surely see one massive shadow after another emerging. They were a pod of mutant orca, the rulers of the deep sea. Under the leadership of their leader, Whalefall, one after another mutant orca began to circle in the sea, creating countless ripples. However, as if paying homage, they always positioned themselves facing Yuziyu. This was an ancient ritual of expressing respect passed down among the orcas since time immemorial. However, after gaining sentience, this ritual had become even more mysterious, even causing Yuziyu to look at it with curiosity. Furthermore, a strange 3-headed serpent also happened to be beside the largest mutant, Whalefall. This giant serpent was none other than Slytherin, one of the deformed mutant beasts with the most amazing innate talent of Misty Mountains. Currently, it was several times larger than before it went to the sea. Looking from a distance, it was not inferior in size to ordinary mutant orcas. Also, it was radiating a cold aura, along with a hint of fierceness and brutality. As expected, the sea is where Slytherin belongs. A smile bloomed on Yuziyu's lips, feeling a bit satisfied with Slytherin's growth. Anyway, now's not the time to dwell on this. As if thinking of something, Yuziyu's gaze shifted as he looked towards a corner. There, a sleek snow leopard happened to be lying down. Standing above the snow leopard's head was a green mantis, about the size of golden ant. The transcendent snow leopard, thanks to its ability, super speed, was terrifyingly fast. As for the green mantis, it was the very same mantis that had confronted golden ant head-on, specialized in stealth and in sudden bursts of power. They were not prominent like the rest, as they did not like to appear in front of humans, yet they were another ace up Yuziyu's sleeve. They were hailed as the assassin duo. Divine Tree, you actually have so many powerhouses under you? Exclaiming in a voice filled with astonishment, the 5-color spirit flower gasped in shock. She knew that Misty Mountains was terrifying. However, when these mutant beasts gathered one by one, she found that she had grossly underestimated it by far. Can someone tell me where these 4 giant birds bathing in flames in the sky came from? Can somebody tell me where these dozens of terrifying mutant orcas with frightening auras in the sea came from? And this isn't even the end. What left the 5-color spirit flower even more astonished were snow leopard and mantis silently emerging in the distance. Only now did the 5-color spirit flower realize the existence of these two. At this moment, as if noticing the 5-color spirit flower's astonishment, a soft laugh echoed in her ears. Snow leopard and mantis are the assassins of Misty Mountains. They are especially skilled in stealth. Normally, without my permission, they remain hidden in the shadows. Naturally, ordinary transcendents would find it difficult to detect them. Hearing Yuziyu's explanation, the 5-color spirit flower was momentarily stunned. After a moment, as if finally reacting, the 5-colored spirit flower asked in astonishment, "Difficult to detect even for ordinary transcendents? Is it even hard for me to detect them?" This statement was not something casually made by the 5-color spirit flower. As a formidable entity adept in psychic power, the perception of the 5-color spirit flower was no joke. Although it was not as extensive as Yuziyu's ability to sense everything within thousands of kilometers, the entire island was within her perception. But, before the 5-color spirit flower could dwell on it further, Yuziyu interrupted. They were not just hiding on the island. Speaking of this, Yuziyu's corners of lips could not help but rise into a smile. Snow leopard and mantis. These 2 mutant beasts, innate or not, had mastered the essence of stealth. As far as they were concerned, anywhere and everywhere was a hiding spot. When encountering a formidable entity with keen senses like the 5-color spirit flower, they knew how to cleverly withdraw to a safe distance. In other words, when the 5-color spirit flower arrived, they had already skillfully moved beyond her perception range. This was also Yu Ziyu's test for them, which they seemed to have passed. Snow Leopard and Mantis successfully hoodwinked the 5-color spirit flower and remained hidden until now. If they had not taken the initiative to appear, the 5-color spirit flower would have probably remained clueless for a long time. Thinking of this, Yu Ziyu had an idea of forming and training an assassin squad. With Snow Leopard as the leader and Mantis as his deputy, it's high time that I form an assassin squad. The transcendent spider dwelling deep within Misty Mountains can also become a member of the assassin squad. With her network of webs to lay traps, coupled with the ambushes and attacks of mutant beasts like the Snow Leopard and Mantis, ordinary powerhouses would not be able to resist. Furthermore, Yu Ziyu's initial plan should not be forgotten. His plan was to use his terrifying paralyzing toxin, coating the claws of the assassin squad members to further enhance their lethality. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.